Good morning, everyone. We are going to call this meeting of the TRPA Governing Board to order. It is Wednesday, August 26th, and it is 9:34 a.m. First item, staff, can you please call the roll to determine quorum?
Ms. Aldine? Here. Mr. Rodriguez?
Here.
Mr. Bass? Mr. Kanata? Ms. Faustinos?
Here.
Ms. Gustafson?
Here.
Mr. Guthrow?
Here.
Ms. Hayes? Ms. Hill?
Here.
Mr. Henigman?
Here.
Mr. Keykeper?
Here.
Ms. Lane?
Here.
Ms. Loomer?
Here.
Mr. Tolbert?
Here.
Ms. Williamson?
Here.
Madam Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you very much.
This is Mr.
Just
Bass.
a quick reminder.
This is Cody Bass. I'm online, but I haven't been promoted to panelist. So I am present, but just not a panelist.
Thanks, Cody. We're on it. I appreciate that.
Yep.
And just a quick reminder to my board members online not to use the chat box to make any comments or have sidebar conversations. And we'll go from there. Next item on our agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. If you could all please stand and join me. Thank you very much. Let's move on then to agenda item 3, which is our public comment period for items on this agenda. Any member of the public wishing to address the governing board on any agenda item, including items on the consent calendar, may do so at this time. This again is our comment period for items on this agenda. Just a quick reminder that the herbicide use associated with the Caldor Fire Restoration Project is not on the governing board's agenda. It is on the EIP committee agenda later today. The EIP committee is going to begin no earlier than 12:15, and there will be a public comment period at that time. So with that, if any member of the public, I'll start in the room, wants to make a public comment, we will limit comments to 3 minutes per speaker. Come on up and please turn on the microphone when you're ready.
This is for item 8A and B. Hello, I'm Alan Miller, a former senior engineer with the Lahontan Water Quality Board, speaking in support of my extensive written comments and the comments of Tahoe Clean Air and Sierra Club for Lake Tahoe. I wish Lake Tahoe wasn't degraded by pollution from historic development continuing to the present. I wish Lake Tahoe wasn't contaminated by toxic microplastics at remarkably high levels, because TRPA and others allowed plastic shoreline structures that are deteriorating to microplastics. I wish TRPA wasn't so deceitful and corrupt in its practices that violate the compact and code with cumulative and significant adverse effects from nearly every development project and planning effort. I wish TRPA was a science-based environmental protection organization instead of a soft science globalist municipal planner and an anti-scientific cabal of political hacks. I wish the total maximum daily load regulatory program designed to restore Lake Tahoe was having a noticeable effect on increasing clarity and lake health. It is not. I wish TRPA was more considerate of public concerns with fire and evacuation, the environment of the region, and human health in general, as for example, with glyphosate use or microplastics. Because of all these things, and because they're true, I put forward in my comments a proposed presidential order I sent to President Trump to stimulate federal agency actions that could begin now on fire, evacuation, and abating microplastics in Lake Tahoe, and suggest federal investigations of corruption at TRPA. And I also discussed the most likely reason the TMDL has failed and 2 potential out-of-the-box proposals to address the declining health of Lake Tahoe. First, an engineering proposal with a unique service provider, Aquaterex, to ascertain whether it may be feasible to dilute the polluted waters of Lake Tahoe with high-quality water from very deep beneath the ground. Second, I suggested to pursue a feasibility study with Langenberg Technologies and its genius principle to treat the waters in or flowing to Lake Tahoe to remove pollutants, generate clean energy, and discharge high-quality, super oxygenated waters. These things I place in your hands will be of no use if you disregard science and continue destructive development policies and misdirection. Turk is not required to work with you. Director Hampton doesn't want to enable and defend the results of your corruption. It's way past time for TRPA to evolve or pass away for being a pretender to greatness and the worst toxic polluter in the basin. I suggest evolving rather than choosing continued corruption. There's always a choice. We'll see how it goes either way. My best regards to Dr. Hampton and those dedicated to true science.
Anyone else in the room wishing to make comment, please come on up.
I think it's on. Thank you, Steve Dolan, Friends of Third Creek. I want to thank you for allowing me to speak. Several years ago, I addressed several times this governing board regarding Third Creek and the removal of the Incline Lake Dam. There were continually problems related to the LTBMU from 2020 to 2023. For 3 years, I told you that the LTBMU's MOU was preventing you from your staff from enforcing best management practices. August 4th, 2023, with the help of the new executive director, Ms. Reagan, and a YouTube production that registered all of the many, many problems that were not monitored by TRPA for the LTBMU with the dam removal, no BMPs, nothing. Showed up, and we got to have what I'm kind of calling the summit. The LTBMU legislative liaison, Charles Clark, Forest Supervisor, Eric Walker, LTBMU's contract manager, 3 hydrologists for them, myself, Sierra Club Vice President, and the President of Tahoe Clean Air were at this summit. Your environmental team, Shannon Friedman, Kat McIntyre, and Steve Sweet, the code enforcement, were there to observe the blatant violations. The kill zone for the Third Creek fisheries spawn from the dam area to the mouth of Third Creek in the lake was sent to this governing board, to the staff, and to you, Ms. Reagan. You recently told me that it was you that sent your staff and encouraged that meeting. I thank you for that. So if then, why are you now about to fall into the same kind of embarrassing situation, this board, with an MOU that may or may not be applicable or respected regarding basin health? This is a problem between the LTBMU, this board, staff, enforcement regarding the quality of water, clarity, and public enjoyment, which is the edict for all of you. At that time, Incline Lake Dam Removal Summit, your BMP Codes Enforcement Manager, Steve Sweet, stood upon a hill of dirt where it cascaded into Third Creek.
And Mr. Dolan, we're
Yes.
at our 3-minute mark. If those comments before you are written, you can actually give them to us and we can enter those so we can see them. But I'm going to have to ask you to stop at the 3-minute mark, please.
One more sentence.
One more sentence.
Thank you. Maybe it's a long one. Steve Sweet stood upon the hill of Third Creek, admonished the LTBMU, and by default himself for trusting the LTBMU. In disgust, Eric Walker walked away from the living proof of his failure and the failure of his hydrologists to guide that project.
Thank you, sir. Others in the room? All right. Can we go online, please, Catherine? Is there anyone online wishing to make comment at this time?
Thank you, Madam Chair. There's one hand raised online. Ann Nichols, please unmute to make your comment.
Good morning, Ann Nichols, North Tahoe Preservation Alliance. Yesterday, the Placer County Board of Supervisors approved seeking Opportunity Zone designation for Kings Beach and stated that TRPA had approved an Opportunity Zone for Kings Beach. That kind of blanket reliance on TRPA's approval is powerful. If TRPA's name is going to be used to justify major decisions affecting Tahoe communities, TRPA should make sure those decisions actually reflect current community conditions and concerns. Before TRPA facilitates more growth in places like Kings Beach, it should check in with the community about capacity, evacuation, infrastructure, clarity, not simply let its approval be used as a broad endorsement. And the same principle applies here. TRPA should not outsource its environmental responsibilities simply because another agency is implementing the project. TRPA was created to protect Tahoe. This is precisely what we need to do, that job. When you created the entitlement system at TRPA years and years ago, your unintended consequence was it made everything more expensive. I'm a realtor for 50 years, Nevada and California broker. That's how economics works. So now everything's more expensive. The property's more expensive. It's harder to pencil out. It's harder to do. Now with Kings Beach, an opportunity zone giving tax benefits to investors will make those properties more expensive. I don't know that, I like to say you need a good realtor. Thank you.
And Madam Chair, one more hand went up. Toby Tyler, please unmute to make your comment.
My name is Toby Tyler, speaking on behalf of Sierra Club's Tahoe Area Group. We are asking TRPA to support an immediate technical reassessment of the Lake Tahoe TMDL. The reason is straightforward. The TMDL is reporting success, but the lake is not responding as predicted. The 2026 TMDL performance report says jurisdictions met and exceeded their targets and received over 3,600 clarity credits, representing modeled reductions of more than 736 pounds of fine sediment annually. Yet UC Davis reports that Lake Tahoe's annual clarity has essentially plateaued around 70 feet for 2 decades. In 2025, it was just 69.2 feet. Summer clarity was only 60.4 feet, and according to UC Davis, remains the primary factor limiting improvements in annual average lake clarity. Even more troubling, the TMDL agencies themselves acknowledge that the lake does not appear to be responding as anticipated by the TMDL analysis. The science is also changing. UC Davis found near record concentrations of tiny particles that impair clarity, even when stream and wildfire particle loading was relatively low. Some of those particles may be biological rather than inorganic sediment. Total hydrolyzable phosphorus, important because Tahoe is phosphorus limited, has also been increasing over the last 18 years. And the agencies acknowledge that wildfire, increased stratification, changing lake dynamics, and invasive species were not fully foreseen at the time of TMDL development. This does not mean we abandon sediment and nutrient controls. It means we need to determine whether the assumptions connecting those controls to lake clarity are still scientifically valid. We are now entering the TMDL's 2026 to 2031 evaluation period. We should not wait until 2031 to discover that the model needs to change. We asked TRPA to formally request that Lahontan and NDEP initiate an independent public reassessment of the TMDL now, including its load response model, pollutant allocations, climate assumptions, biological processes, and clarity credit system, and establish objective criteria for when the TMDL must be revised. Success cannot be measured simply by credits awarded or modeled pounds of pollution avoided. It must ultimately be measured by the conditions of the lake itself. Thank you.
Madam Chair, there are no more hands raised to comment.
Thank you. With that, we will close this period of public comment and move on to approval of the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda?
No, Madam Chair, no changes.
Thank you. We will deem the agenda approved as posted. Next is agenda item 5, which is approval of minutes. We have a draft set of minutes from the July 22nd meeting on page 7. Does any board member wish to make a change? If not, I'm looking for a motion to approve. Thank you. I have a motion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. That brings us to agenda item 6, which is our consent calendar. There are 3 items on consent which were not reviewed in a committee. Consent item 6A is the Quagga Zebra Mussel Infestation Prevention Grant Program Application and Funding Agreement Resolution. Information on this consent item is on page 59 of our packet. Any board members have questions on this item? Seeing and hearing none, consent item 6B is the Advisory Planning Commission membership reappointment of Jason Drew as the El Dorado County lay member. Information is on page 61 of this packet. Anyone have questions on this item? Seeing and hearing none, consent item 6C is Governing Board Committee membership appointment. Information on this item is on page 63 of this packet. Anyone have any questions on that one? Okay, seeing and hearing none, I'm looking for a motion to approve the consent calendar.
So moved.
I have a motion. Thank you. This is going to require a roll call vote. If I can please turn it to staff.
Ms. Alding,
Yes.
Mr. Bass,
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Mr. Kanata, Mr. Guthrow,
Yes.
Ms. Faustinos,
Yes.
Ms. Hill,
Yes.
Ms. Gustafson,
Yes.
Mr. Keycapper,
Yes.
Mr. Henigman,
Yes.
Mr. Tolbert,
Yes.
Ms. Lane,
Yes.
Ms. Loomer,
Yes.
Ms. Williamson.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion passes.
Thank you. Let's move on to agenda item 7, which is administrative matters. Agenda item 7A is a resolution recognizing Chief Operating Officer and Deputy Executive Director John Hester. I've been told this is a light roast. Just kidding, John. Information is on page 67 of this packet. And if I could please turn it over to Director Reagan to read the resolution.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Julie Reagan here, TRPA's Executive Director. And yes, it is a light roast, which requires Mr. Hester to come to the podium so that he can stand and endure. Thank you for the opportunity to read this resolution into the record, Mr. Hester. Good morning. Hello. Wonderful. And this is what you'll be voting on, and I'll put that into the record. Whereas John Hester has dedicated 15 years of his first retirement in service to the Tahoe Regional Planning Agency, bringing exceptional experience and commitment to the protection and stewardship of the Lake Tahoe region. And whereas John played an instrumental role in modernizing the Lake Tahoe Regional Plan and strengthening the agency's planning framework to build thriving, sustainable communities within Lake Tahoe's unique and treasured environment. Whereas through his collective and collaborative leadership of the Advisory Planning Commission, John worked closely with local governments to advance implementation of the regional plan's shared vision. And whereas John strengthened TRPA's internal operations by aligning staff initiatives and encouraging continuous improvement, often with the use of hexagon planning exercises, aka hexagons, as we affectionately call that at the agency. Whereas John's greatest and most enduring contributions are his extraordinary mentorship of TRPA staff, generously sharing his knowledge, creating opportunities for professional growth, providing trusted counsel, and helping employees across the agency become confident and capable leaders. Whereas John's thoughtful and steady leadership fostered a culture of trust and teamwork at TRPA, and his guidance has shaped the careers of planners and public service here at the agency and in other multiple jurisdictions and communities over the last 50 years. Whereas John's office whiteboard always exhibited extraordinary visionary ideas and impressive hand-drawn depictions of planning concepts, inspiring staff and board members alike. And whereas John was known in the office as Johnny Llama due to his calm demeanor, graceful mentorship, and deep planning knowledge. Whereas John could be counted on to regale staff with personal stories from his vast planning experience to help solve any planning conundrum or challenging system scenario. Whereas John's professional legacy was recognized in 2025 with the Special President's Award from the Nevada chapter of the American Planning Association, honoring his contributions to planning and his lasting impact on communities and planning professionals throughout the state. Now be it resolved that the TRPA Governing Board hereby recognizes and expresses its deepest appreciation to John Hester for 15 years of distinguished service, exceptional leadership, mentorship, and lasting contributions to the agency and the Lake Tahoe region. Be it resolved that John's dedication to public service, deep institutional knowledge, and steady leadership have left TRPA and Lake Tahoe stronger and will continue to guide and inspire the agency and our staff for years to come. Yep. And before I turn the podium over to John, I did want to read a word from Clem Shute, a former governor's appointee here from California, the governing board. Clem worked with John and wanted me to say, for him, John, I appreciate and respect your accomplishments at TRPA. During my 10 years or so on the governing board, you were always responsive to my questions. I chaired the Regional Planning Implementation Committee and needed your help often on things like area plans or complete streets. You never failed me. I can say that during my career, I've worked with many planners and you are the best. You found a way for people to get their ideas discussed and even those ideas that were controversial or undeveloped. I wish you the best in the future, and I hope that you find a way to continue using your skills in some way to help others. So congratulations, John. The floor is yours. Yep.
Okay. Well, since I knew what was in the resolution, I thought of a story to regale you with. Don't want to do it just for staff. So about 50 years ago, when I was in architecture school and thinking about going into planning, getting my master's, I was working my first planning job in urban design at the city of Fort Worth. And if anybody is an APA, American Planning Association, there's this magazine called Planning that comes out. And I opened it up and there was this story about this place on the state line between that covered Nevada and California. And they were using this technology and they had watershed jurisdiction and they were trying to do all of these cool environmental things to help Lake Tahoe. And I thought, wow, that's kind of neat, because back then, I was a kid of the 60s and 70s and we all wanted to save the environment. And I looked at that and I thought, someday I'd like to work at a place like that. So that's 50 years ago. 31 years ago, my wife and I got married at Lake Tahoe up at Incline Village. And then 15 years ago, when I retired after 30 years with Washoe County and City of Reno, and I was looking at a job a little bit further outside the area, my wife said, no, we're staying here, find something close. And so TRPA was stuck with me. And I want to thank Joan Marquetta, who I spent 11 years working with. Then for 6 months or 5 or 6 months, I was interim ED and Cindy was my supervisor as the chair of the board. And that was a great experience. And then Julie has been my supervisor as the ED over the last 3.5, 4 years. I want to take a little side note here to tell you that you guys are very fortunate to have Julie as your ED because I don't know anybody who works as hard for TRPA as Julie does. And she is out there at 7 in the morning at a breakfast or 7 or 8 or later at night at a dinner and all the times in between. So she works her, what off for you guys. So I'm just telling it like it is, Julie. I don't need to butter you up because I'm leaving, but anyway. But I've also had the opportunity to work with a group of outstanding people. Many of them are here and they're really dedicated to this lake. And I thank them along with the people who supervise me. And I want to thank you guys. You guys come here every month and for committee meetings and you get information in between and you all care about the lake. You don't get paid. I know that. I know you care because I've worked with a lot of you and you take a lot of abuse that's not deserved. And I don't know why a lot of people do what you do because I'm serious. I've been on boards too, and it's, people think, oh, what a great honor it is and all this stuff. It's a lot of hard work and a lot is demanded of you and people don't appreciate you. So I do, and I want to thank you. I know our staff does too, but it's been a great experience. So thank you very much for the resolution.
Thank you, John.
And I know Polly Lama will do well.
John, you can't leave quite yet though, because I think our board members have some comments. I know Vince does. I'm going to start there, and I'm sure others do too.
I get to go first. Awesome. John, yeah, I can't believe this time has actually happened. John, for the new board members, has been working on all the planning issues, and I've been head of the regional planning committee for a long time now. So we've worked very closely together, and John has had to field many emails coming in from me all times of the day and night with my half harebrained ideas, mostly harebrained ideas. But I just wanted to say it's been an incredible pleasure to work with you over these last 4 years. John's incredibly knowledgeable, experienced, kind, and patient with everyone and the public, with us, the staff, everything. You really helped me transition into the role on the governing board and as head of the regional planning committee. You can tell John's a great leader by the quality of the team he's assembled. You really have great people, and also by the way that the people talk about you and the deference you receive from all the staff and your colleagues and board members. Your past experience in Reno and Washoe County and your years in Tahoe have been incredibly valuable to the lake, the communities, and the TRPA. Nobody can ever replace you, but it's nice that you've left us with a great person to succeed you. So I know that the staff is going to miss you, and I'm going to miss you a ton as well. Before having kids, crying children on airplanes drove me crazy. After having children, it became very relaxing to me because it was like, it's not my problem, like, oh, wow, I don't have to deal with that. And so I suggest if you want some relaxation, you can just put these meetings on in the background and get a good chuckle that you don't have to worry about this anymore. Hopefully you find that relaxing. So it's always a sad event to lose a great teammate, but it's always a happy event to see them go on to something better, in this case, retirement. I know that we're all very excited for you to get to relax and enjoy the fruits of all those years and all your great work. I wish you a wonderful retirement. Have a freaking blast. And to help you start that off, I brought you a little present that you can hopefully smash over a new boat, a new motorcycle, or just a couple good glasses with your wife one evening. So have a great time. You've earned it. Thank you so much for all you've done.
Thank you. Thank you.
Cindy.
Thank you, John. I want to echo everything Vince shared and a few other things. Like I think in the resolution where it says his most enduring contributions is the mentorship of staff, I would say, and board. Because you were quite a trusted mentor, friend, colleague. You never made me feel like I didn't know anything about planning that I should have known, which you could have, when I would say, can't we think about this? And there would be always a polite way that he would say, well, that's a thought, but anyway, but a lot of creative solutions. I really appreciate the positive attitude of let's think about this and let's find a way, find a path. It's not just no, it's how and how we get there. During those 6 months when we were in an interim stage and a lot of things had changed on the board, you stepped in and were just that constant that allowed the board to function and make a great selection and move forward in our path. And I look at legacy. Why we do what we do is to make a difference, right? All of us serve in these volunteer capacities. And while you were compensated, you didn't need to be doing what you were doing and taking and making the efforts that you did. You know, you had passed your retirement. You'd already done that and you chose to make a difference here, and you really, really did. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Cindy.
And my bottle will be coming later because I wasn't really together for this.
Alexis?
I won't let you forget.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And John, I'm so excited for you to spend some time with your family and really enjoy all of the contributions you've made to our county and our state, and now 2 states and Lake Tahoe. And I do believe when you look at legacy, we have yet to see all of the incredible outcomes on the housing work that you've done with the team, and understanding how the counties interface with TRPA because of your intimate work at Washoe County. And I feel so connected with you because of that service. And in addition to that, with your cultivating the relationship between TRPA and transportation, and helping me with that board and helping us understand how we can further that connection of planning and transportation, that is going to really be instrumental to the future of TRPA. So thank you for your work, and I'll see you in the neighborhood.
Thank you, Alexis. And I know she mentioned our connection. She lives 2 blocks down the street from me, or I live 2 blocks down the street from her, depending on how you look at it. And see her for our transportation folks on her bicycle with her kid and her husband. So looking forward to seeing you more. Thank you.
Shelley?
Well, thank you. Well, John, I mean, 15 years, come on, you're a short timer. And that's coming from the official fossil of this board. I echo everything that's been said. I remember, I had a real concern. We were talking about increasing the height of buildings in core areas, and I remember that whiteboard because you should have been an illustrator, and maybe that in your next iteration that you'll be writing, or illustrating cartoons or something. But you called me into your office and you said, now, because it had to do, my concern was had to do with shadowing or shading of existing buildings by these buildings with increased height, and we came to what I thought was a reasonable compromise. And I echo the comments that have been made about your willingness to consider new ideas, even some of them that are maybe unfounded, or concerns that are unfounded, or ideas that are kind of outlandish. So that sort of flexibility and that sort of willingness to listen and to explore new ideas that may or may not bear fruit, I think is very important in any role that you play. But I made some similar comments about the former city manager of Carson City, Larry Warner. He was originally the engineer in Carson City, then he graduated to city manager, and then he retired, and we had a gala send off, and then he reappeared as the interim manager of Douglas County. And so I'm not thoroughly convinced that we're not going to hear from you again, because so I'm going to hereby provide you with an open invitation to return as, of course, an unpaid volunteer to join the rest of the board in servicing this agency. But and I'm sure to the extent you can that you will offer your services where needed. And again, thank you for your dedication and consistency over the years.
Thank you, Shelley. It's been an honor serving with you. And for those who don't know, make sure I leave this picture behind. When we were doing the Development Rights Strategic Initiative, there's Bill Yates and Shelley. Shelley's the Vanna and Bill's the Pat Sajak, or whatever the guy's name was. And they're explaining different development rights scenarios. And it's a great picture. And you still look as young as you did then.
No, that's the benefit of losing your eyesight. But I appreciate it very much. Thanks, John.
Belinda?
Well, John, you know, obviously, we have a lot of personal time we've spent together since you were my chauffeur many times from the Reno airport into South Lake Tahoe. And I just want to echo what all my fellow board members have said about, you know, just your tremendous style and effortless management of all things, you know, staff, policy. It's been incredible. But I think that the things I treasure the most in terms of our, you know, drives in is sharing mole recipes. You know, in the car, talking about our kids' college experiences and such. And you know, you are just one of those Renaissance men. You know, you have that full gamut of experiences and ability to share it in a very compelling way. So I appreciate you so much, and hopefully we'll be able to stay in touch and see each other in our next iteration of retirement, because I, along with you, have tried this many times, and I don't think we're very good at retirement, to tell you the truth. So I just wish you all the best, and I know that I'll be seeing you soon.
Thank you, Belinda. And for those who don't know, Belinda has a great mole enchilada recipe. I've texted her pictures of my version of her recipe, and the neighborhood liked it, including your former general counsel and his wife, who came over for some of your enchiladas, Belinda. I hope we do stay in touch. Thank you.
And I'll just wrap by saying, John, you are one of the most unique people in that you can both educate and listen in a way that is so calm and humble and with humor. And it is nothing short of an honor of having served on this board and the help you have given us all. So I just want to tell you that it's a unique gift, and I hope whatever you do next, they're going to be lucky to have you. And I hope it brings you the joy that hopefully some of your working days brought you here, but know that you have made such an impact on this community, on this board, on this lake, and we're so thankful for you. So please join me one more time, everyone, in thanking John.
Thank you. Cheers.
We know where to find you.
Chair Haley?
Yeah.
I would just say it's a liability sitting between our vice chair and my colleague to the right, because you just flew right over me.
I just flew right over
and
you.
you've never looked back this way. So
My apologies, Brooke.
it's
Go
okay.
ahead.
I just want to briefly say, I've been wiping my eyes through this whole presentation. I have an eye problem that causes my eyes to water. So I'm wiping my eyes a lot, or I'm crying. You will never know which. So just want to say, I haven't had the chance as a board member to work extremely closely with you. But one field trip we took was down to Carson City when they put the overpass in. And you brought us down into the downtown area and explained why the benefits of doing this in a city really mattered. And you talked about sales tax, you talked about curbs and gutters and sidewalks, and the beauty of that area now that it doesn't have literally a freeway running through it. So what you bring to the table is just ginormous, and you're going to be missed. And I love Shelley's idea that you maybe join us on the board and get to feel the full gamut of how this works. So congratulations. Thank you, Chair.
So we actually still, guys, need a motion here to adopt the resolution recognizing Chief Operating Officer and Deputy Executive Director and all-around awesome human, John Hester. Do I have a motion? Thank you. And any further discussion? Okay. Maria, can we please have a roll call vote?
Ms. Alding?
Yes.
Mr. Bass?
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Mr. Kanata? Mr. Guthrow?
Yes.
Ms. Faustinos?
Enthusiastic, yes.
Ms. Hill?
Yes.
Ms. Gustafson?
Aye, aye.
Mr. Keykeeper?
Yes.
Mr. Henigman?
Yes.
Mr. Tolbert?
Yes.
Ms. Lane?
Yes.
Ms. Loomer?
Yes.
Ms. Williamson?
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion passes.
Thank you. All All right, that moves us on to agenda item 8, which is planning matters. This is our 2026 Tahoe State of the Lake report by Dr. Stephanie Hampton from UC Davis. Information can be found on page 69. Dr. Hampton and Dan Segan, whenever you guys are ready, I will turn it over to you.
Dan Segan and I were just discussing who's going to officially welcome Dr. Hampton, and I will start by saying we are delighted to have you back. You are no longer the new director because this is your second time addressing the governing board, but Dan will kick this presentation off and we're very happy to have you. I'm sure the board agrees. We know how busy you are. Thanks for making the time.
Everything Julie said on that. So we're pleased to welcome Dr. Stephanie Hampton, who is the director of TRPA here. And I actually want to reflect back to the comments that the Sierra Club made in the opening, because we are in a time when we're dealing with lots of challenges for our lake. The impact of wildfires, the impact of invasive species, changing climate dynamics that have changed storms and changed the internal functioning of the lake. And in times like that, the most important thing that you can have is trusted partners to work through these problems with. And Stephanie and her team at Davis are those trusted partners. And we turn to them every day and ask questions that are probably stupid. And Stephanie entertains them as if they're not. So I welcome you all to ask her questions. I encourage you to listen. And just remember, there's no question so dumb that I probably haven't asked it already. So with that, I'll turn it over to Stephanie.
Thank you. And thanks for the introduction. Thanks for the invitation to be here. Thanks to the board for your volunteer service. I also recognize that board work is actually a lot of work and appreciate what you do. So I will kick off. This is it builds off of the State of the Lake report that we do every year for UC Davis. And next slide, please. The State of the Lake report, it represents an opportunity for us to synthesize the work that we do throughout the year and to put it in the context of the longer record of research and the larger scientific progress that has occurred worldwide. And I'll be talking about both monitoring and research. And we've been having a lot of these discussions lately in the Tahoe science community about differentiating monitoring and research, because there are times we do a lot of monitoring, as you know, and it's extraordinarily important. But sometimes when we find puzzling trends in particular, it's really time for research, and monitoring it is not exactly the same as research. And I'll try to point out what some of those things are along the way, but just urge you to keep that in mind. Here, we've been able to synthesize both the monitoring data that we collect and also some of the new research that we've instigated with donor funding, with other sources of funding, and sometimes really just with volunteer and a lot of heart and late nights. And I really want to give a heartfelt thanks to all the people who sponsored the report, including TRPA, the funders of the research, education, outreach that I'll be talking about, and the talented and dedicated staff at TRPA who make all of this possible. Next slide, please. So many or possibly most of you know that UC Davis has been up in Tahoe since the 1950s when Professor Goldman first started to work here. Development plans around Tahoe, as probably all of you know, were pretty wild in the 1950s and 1960s. And Dr. Goldman first recognized, coming up here as a very early career scientist, that this big blue lake was responding to changes that were occurring already, even before some of these proposed changes, like the proposed highway across Emerald Bay. And it would not remain blue if some of these plans actually came to fruition, like that proposed highway. Dr. Goldman worked with citizens like the group that ultimately became Keep Tahoe Blue, and the agencies to provide the science that helped these groups to argue for stricter environmental protections, including the complete divergence of sewage out of the Tahoe Basin. Next slide. And some of those bad ideas did not come to pass. Like here's Emerald Bay and look, there's no 4-lane highway. I mean, it really truly would have been a disaster for Emerald Bay and for the lake overall. So thank you to Dr. Goldman, who's 95 now, and all of the researchers who've worked towards this environmental protection, citizens groups, the legislators, everyone who supported preserving this place, and to the people who are still working to preserve it. It's a reminder of the truly great things that we can do when we get together as a community and work hard together. And this is really why we're all here. This is why we're working, living, or visiting here, why we volunteer our time to protect it. It is a truly special place. Next slide. And we know visitors sustain the economy in the basin, and the community understands that the environment and our economy are tightly intertwined. Next slide. And altogether, these decades of research have resulted in an infrastructure that is both broad and deep. We truly have fantastic scientific capacity here to bring to bear on these questions. Next slide. I know that questions of water clarity loom large for Lake Tahoe, as we've already heard this morning, and we all know that. Clarity is the depth that you can see into the water, and it's a good indicator of ecosystem health. We don't rely on clarity alone to take the pulse of the lake, but it's a really important indicator for us, as you know. One way we measure clarity is with the Secchi disc. I almost don't have to explain it in this crowd, but just in case there are people online who haven't heard of it, this is the only place I've ever lived where so many people know what a Secchi disc is. So this is a white 10-inch plate that we lower into the water and determine how deep you can still see the disc as you lower it down. So we have a lot of other technologies that we use to measure clarity, but the Secchi disc has the advantage of being really simple, a very old measure in aquatic science. And so we can compare it to measurements that were made in some other lake 150 years ago. We can make comparisons all over the world and through time. So it's very standardized, it's very cheap, and every aquatic scientist uses the Secchi disc. So here on this, next slide, please. On this chart, what we're doing is we flip the y-axis in aquatic science frequently so that you're sitting at the surface looking down at those data points here. And so after steep declines in water clarity through the 1990s, the annual average clarity appears to have plateaued around an annual average of 70 feet. So good news that the declines seem to have stopped, but as everybody in this room is aware, the management target for Tahoe is more ambitious. This community wants more. The management target for us is to reach historical levels of 97.4 feet to be reached by 2076 with an interim goal of 78 feet by 2031. So we really need to see that trend bending back down. There are seasonal differences that we're paying attention to. Next slide. The winter trends seem to have stabilized. The highest clarity values on this figure, meaning like the data points that are lowest, really, you can see farthest into the lake. Those highest clarity values are those where we have winter with a deep water mixing event. So most years, the water in winter fully mixes down to about 250 meters. And then that bottom water just doesn't mix. But in years when the weather is really cold and stormy, that puts enough energy into the lake to mix it all the way to the bottom. And that clear water comes up from the bottom and provides a short window of very, very high clarity. That water coming up from the bottom also actually brings nutrients, and so that can fuel blooms of algae later on. So it's a bit of a mixed bag when that water mixes, but the water mixing is really important for the lake. Next slide, please. And the summer is where we see the clarity continue to get worse. So it may be that a plateau is coming, but we don't see it yet. The clarity is generally associated with more particles in the water, and particularly the smallest particles. These are 1 to 6 microns in size. It's so small that it's really hard for me to describe how incredibly small it is. So you can't see some of these particles with standard microscopes. These particles at that small size are highly effective in scattering light and so reducing clarity, and they stay suspended longer than some of the larger particles. Next slide. And for most of the Tahoe monitoring history, those particles were too hard to track because they were so small. But now we have been systematically monitoring them since about 2008 using sophisticated equipment that can measure particles in water samples or when we lower instruments into the lake like this one. And all of these pieces of equipment operate basically by shooting tiny little lasers into a small volume of water that then measures the reflections and estimates the number and the size of the particles. Next slide. So clarity mostly tracks the particles, but in some years and some times of year, the relationship is tighter or looser, suggesting other possibly unmonitored variables affecting clarity. And I should note that those sophisticated instruments we use that are really, really important for measuring particles, they measure them as objects, but they do not actually give you the identity of the particles. So other technologies are needed for that. Next slide. But what do we know about what these particles are? So we know that some of them are inorganic. So this can be sediment. This can be ash and smoke. This can also be organic particles. So this can be phytoplankton, the tiny single-celled plants that live in water. This could be plant debris washing out of the watershed. So both inorganic and organic particles are part of that mixture. Next slide. A study in 2006 estimated that the major drivers of water clarity among the particles were inorganic particles, the sediment coming out of the watershed. And so, and of course, we know that our management and our policy has really taken into account the importance of this study, noting that those were inorganic particles. Next slide. At this point, I know that you've already heard and the science community is discussing quite vigorously that new research is needed to address some of these assumptions. So is this still the right percentage? Are we still looking at mostly sediment versus organic particles? And what is currently the primary driver? So you might be asking yourself right now, well, why does it matter? Because they are particles. We do know that particles affect clarity. Next slide. So one example of why this matters is that our expectations would be different depending on what the clarity affecting particles are. So sediments eventually sink in the water, whereas phytoplankton are living organisms. They reproduce, they make more phytoplankton, and so they stay up in the well-lit parts of the water and continue to affect clarity. So you would have different expectations depending on what is the nature of those particles. Next slide. Since the time of those studies at the turn of this past century, the environment, we know that the environment has changed over that past quarter century, and we all recognize the ways that it's changed. For example, we know that the air temperature is warmer. So here I'm showing the maximum temperature at Tahoe City on the top and the minimum on the bottom panel. Both have gotten warmer, and the minimum temperature is especially notable because we have fewer freezing days at lake level. That critically affects the proportion of our precipitation that falls as rain versus snow. And snowpack, of course, is important for recharging the region's water supply, slowly melting throughout the year. Next slide. Whereas rain delivers water really fast and loaded with sediment. So patterns and timing of precipitation are changing, which should change delivery of the sediment, nutrients, and water to the lake. Next slide. This shift towards rain is a long-term trend that many of you are aware of. Most of you, probably all of you are aware of because it's also tied up with our economy and our winter recreation and tourism. We know that the snow lines are getting higher in many years, and we see more precipitation falling as rain at lake level. Next slide. Warmer temperatures in the air translate to warmer water in the lake. And you can see that trend, especially in the surface water that I am showing here. The lake is definitely getting warmer, like almost every other lake in the world. Next slide. Both at the surface and in the deep water. So the deep water is a vast volume of water, and it also shows this warming trend, especially in between the times when the deep water fully mixes. When it mixes fully, the deep water gets exposed to the surface. A lot of that heat is lost, cooling it back down. And you see, some of those drops in temperature. They look precipitous, but each of those is less than 0.3 degrees Fahrenheit. So that means that the top has warmed faster than the bottom is warming. And that's really important for how the lake mixes. In general, next slide. The deep water is still a bit of a mystery. This is a photo that my colleague Alex Forrest took when he sent a ROV, a remotely operated vehicle, down there some years ago. But this is where the deep water is where all that sediment and dead material falls as what we call lake snow. And the temperatures down here will dramatically influence mixing patterns as the surface warms in the future. Next slide. When the warming is most pronounced at the surface, as it is in Tahoe, there are important implications for lake mixing. Warm water floats on top of cold water. So you may be able to remember this if you think about if you've ever lived in a 2-story house or visited, and you go up to that second floor and you can almost feel, sometimes you can feel the change in temperature, and you got the hot on top of cold. And that's how you can remember that the warm water is floating on top of the cold water. And as the temperature difference gets greater, you get warmer and warmer water while it's not warming as much down below. The stratification or the stability of the separation between those layers becomes stronger. It becomes more resistant to mixing. And we use the word stable for that property. Next slide. And that's what you see here. Stratification has become stronger over time. So it's harder to mix between the top and the bottom of the lake. So how does that relate back to clarity? Strong stratification creates really good conditions for growing phytoplankton. They love warm temperatures and strong stratification like that. So next slide, please. So it stands to reason that phytoplankton may be a bigger driver of clarity as water warms. And so now this is where we're starting to get into research questions that need to be addressed. This image is Cyclotella. It's a tiny phytoplankton, really tiny. It's very beautiful under the microscope. It looks like a little glass jewel box, but it's also very good at scattering light and reducing clarity, as many, many researchers at Tahoe have seen over several decades. Next slide. So phytoplankton may be a bigger driver of clarity in some years. So here, let's look at we can focus on June and July in the center of this graph from last year when the clarity was at its worst. And if we just look at how phytoplankton biomass, which means the weight of phytoplankton, in the blue line compares to average biomass, which is in the gray envelope. The 2025 biomass looks average. And then I plotted 2021 and 2022 in yellow because those were years when wildfire changed the phytoplankton dynamics. But just looking at 2025, its total biomass or weight of phytoplankton, it's average. It wouldn't explain the low clarity we see in June and July. But then, next slide, when you look at the total number, so now you're not trying to weigh the phytoplankton, you're just saying how many are there? You see the full picture. So what we did see was that it was a massive bloom of that tiny, tiny phytoplankton, Cyclotella, very high numbers that altogether reduce clarity even though if you scoop them all out of the lake and weighed them, they're not a whole lot of material, just really great at scattering light and staying suspended in the water column where they affect water clarity. So it's possible to see changes in clarity when the identity of the phytoplankton shift with cyclotella blooms like we saw here, or when species shift during wildfire events. Next slide. And so this is something that we have started to work on much more intentionally. So previously, most aquatic scientists responded to wildfire as just an event. So go in and study it, and then that was your one wildfire study. We now recognize that wildfire smoke and ash is increasingly common. Everybody here knows a fire can be far away, but smoke and ash still reaches our communities. And that's true for lakes too. It still reaches our lakes. And so what we have started to do is start to compile that long-term record of smoke and ash. So one of our postdocs compiled data on the number of days that Lake Tahoe has been subjected to smoke and ash, looking at historical records. Next slide. So smoke and ash contribute not just particles, but also nutrients to the water. So the particles come in and they do reduce clarity for some time. There's also nutrients with them too. So nutrients are good for humans, but when we talk about nutrients in the lake, we're talking about the stuff that fuels phytoplankton, fuels algal growth. So they bring in both nutrients and particles, both phosphorus and nitrogen, and can fuel growth of algae. And this is our team out monitoring during the Caldor fire. So this is a huge emphasis for our new research projects, aiming to determine how wildfire smoke and ash affect the lake, both in the short term and then ultimately over the longer term. Next slide. What aquatic ecologists are learning is that these nutrients that come in during wildfires do tend to promote the growth of phytoplankton. And sometimes it's a particular type of phytoplankton that grows. So it's not just more of the same. It's particular species that do well in these conditions. So we looked back at some experiments that were done with Tahoe water in 2013, and somebody adding a little bit of experimental ash into some Tahoe water. And those researchers saw the growth of a tiny filamentous phytoplankton called Leptolingbia. And it turns out that is one of the primary species that bloomed in Lake Tahoe after the Caldor and Dixie fires, and really hung around for quite a while after that. Next slide. In that study, that 2013 experimental study, the researchers also saw picoplankton respond. So we don't know if picoplankton responded to the Caldor fire in the same way because they have not been monitored in the lake. Next slide. So what are picoplankton? So these are the smallest phytoplankton, so 0.5 to 2 microns. In 2009, a study on Lake Tahoe found that these accounted for about half of the total primary productivity of the lake. So about half of the work that's done by phytoplankton to take in energy from the sun and turn it into organic material is actually done by these tiny, tiny cells. Next slide. And very few monitoring programs in the lakes, not just Tahoe, very few monitoring programs historically have tracked picoplankton because they're so small that you need specialized methods to study them. And many people in this room know that I was super stubborn about this when I came in. We have to start looking at picoplankton. And luckily I found my colleagues at UC Davis Comprehensive Cancer Center have exactly the right instruments and exactly the right expertise to help us to do it, and super collegial about letting us use their equipment. And so we're now able to start looking at picoplankton in research. Next slide. So we've got the tools and knowledge to update this understanding. We've known picoplankton were in Tahoe for decades. Previously, they haven't been monitored because they're hard to monitor, but now we have really very cost-effective, widely accepted standard methods to do it. We've got new biologists working with Turk who can also apply genomics, which is really exciting for us to tell us more about what those microorganisms actually do. So it's really a new world in terms of being able to understand the microscopic world in Tahoe and everywhere. So we know that this size of picoplankton is really in the sweet spot for scattering light, reducing clarity. Next slide. We also know that fine particles, including picoplankton and other phytoplankton, as well as sediments from streams and the air, can get bound up into aggregated particles. So fine particles stick together and they start to act like larger particles, sinking out of the zone where they affect clarity. That phenomenon was also known from Tahoe research in the 1970s, but that process was also extremely hard to study until recently. Next slide. So again, we're in the research zone because these are really difficult processes to study. So these aggregates, what we call lake snow, as a corollary to marine snow, which is better studied. This is not glamorous stuff. It's sort of globs of goo. It's a lot of living and dead algae and sediments that are stuck together really, really loosely with the liquid sugars that leak out of phytoplankton. And aggregates break apart really, really easily. So divers will sometimes come up and try to collect them and they just break apart. So just the process of sampling them makes them very hard to work with. So we have to go spy on them very quietly with underwater robots. Next slide. So the technology that we have successfully pioneered here is using an instrument called the LIST Hollow that creates microscopic holographic images of particles and aggregates. So it's a totally non-invasive way to study these guys. And we experimented with it this summer. Next slide. And we have had a lot of success. This is an exciting image to me. I'm suddenly seeing it through your eyes, and it's probably not a lot of information. It's really exciting. We have been able to observe these aggregates, and that allows us to study how they take material out of the top of the lake and down into the deeper water. We think that this process is really important for understanding lake clarity. Next slide. So, these areas of research, I think, are key to understanding why summer clarity is not improving. Sediment loading clearly, without a doubt, in my mind, has been crucial to control, but is not the whole story, as nutrients can also fuel phytoplankton. Next slide. So if phytoplankton is a more important player in clarity than it was 20 years ago, then it would mean that we need to be more cautious about nutrient loading. Luckily, most, if not all, of the actions that we've taken here to control sediment also reduce nutrients. And of course, we had the huge success of sewage being diverted out of the basin decades ago. That really reminds us of the things that we can do together. We can do big things together. We're fortunate that we're not talking about sewage anymore and have already addressed some of those huge potential problems. And we are working to protect the lake in this ever-changing environment, both offshore and nearshore. Next slide. So nearshore is where many important lake processes occur. It's where people interact the most with the lake. It's where most of the pressure from aquatic invasive species occurs. And as I mentioned, UC Davis has been monitoring conditions nearshore for decades, both with older methods, collecting data by hand, and with newer technologies that provide consistent real-time conditions. Next slide. Consistent real nearshore conditions. Next slide. So the greatest concerns the public has about nearshore conditions are about the algae. And these have been the subject of study for decades. So algae growing on rocks are called periphyton. And we also have them floating free, and they're called metaphyton. Next slide. And as has been shown on many other lakes that I've studied over my career of studying big blue lakes, blooms like these near shore can reach nuisance conditions, and they are a real concern to the public. And in every other lake where I've worked on these near shore blooms, they have been reasonably linked to human actions. And so it is a really important area of study for us. Next slide. So the problem is that we have 75 miles of shoreline. So that's, that's wonderful because it's a big, beautiful lake, but 75 miles of shoreline is very difficult to monitor, and especially for these particular organisms. So the periphyton mats will grow on the rocks, they'll die, they'll kind of slough off, they'll wash away, and then they grow somewhere else the next year. The metaphyton, that unattached algae, just kind of rolls around. You don't really know where it's going to show up. And so the methods that scientists typically use of systematically going back to the same place and doing the same thing over and over again, they don't work well with these nearshore algae. Next slide. With the support of donors and volunteers, including people who have volunteered from my own staff, we're trying a more integrated approach, doing sample collections in the water, as well as taking images using drones and helicopters. Next slide. So with the helicopters and our volunteer time, we've been able to use machine learning to analyze the images that we take from helicopters of the entire 75-mile shoreline and estimate the extent of periphyton cover in the images, comparing that to what the divers see in the water. So we are at the point where the helicopter approach is working. It's robust and ready to use for monitoring periphyton and metaphyton across the full shoreline. Next slide. And with the support of UC Davis for our graduate student, Gabe Calistro, he is now testing the limits of using satellite remote sensing for monitoring nearshore algae. So this is hard. If it works, it would provide a really cost-effective and potentially semi-automated way to monitor the algae. Next slide. And then we've got Bailey Hing is a new graduate student who is also working with Keep Tahoe Blue. They're helping to support her to work with aquatic invasive species. And she started to looking into using genetic approaches for seeing where algae patches form and how they may be associated with invasive species. Next slide. So when I came in as new director, I still was new when I talked to you guys last year. And I told UC Davis leadership as part of my negotiations that a key aspect of my vision was to involve more faculty to bring more of our university's world-class expertise up here for collaboration. I'm very driven by people and community and collaboration. So instead of asking our chancellor for a new boat, which I probably should have done, I asked for the funds to support graduate students and postdocs who would help get faculty involved and keep them involved up here so we can all benefit from their expertise. And now I am living the dream. I'm very tired. It's been it's been a very busy summer. But I'm so energized by all of these students and our incredible staff and researchers and collaborators. Next slide. So I really appreciate the invitation to come talk with you, and I hope that I have saved enough time on the agenda to answer any questions.
Oh yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Hampton. As a reminder, very quickly to the board, this is informational only, but happy to field questions and comments at this point. I'm gonna start there, Brooke.
I'll jump on that opportunity. I have a Dan Segan permission question because it might sound really silly, but it made me think about it. We have a lot of dumping of human remains in the lake. And I don't know what could be done to monitor that necessarily. It's pretty easy to sneak into anywhere, but I'm just wondering if you've thought about that, and especially when you talk about these small organisms and that that they grow with ash, and it's essentially what we're putting in the lake all the time.
That is a really interesting question. And I have to confess that every single time somebody tells me that they have had a ceremony to put the remains into lake, I think, about the about the nutrient contributions. I mean, I suspect that it's a it is still a small volume. Even, I mean, you could do some back of the envelope calculations about how many you might expect every day during a particular season or something like that. I suspect that it would still come up to be relatively small contribution relative to what's coming in through the atmosphere or through the Truckee River or some of the other big streams. But I have also thought of that. Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any other questions or comments, Vince?
Thank you so much for all the work you're doing. We're so lucky to have you up here and have UC Davis in general and all the great people working on it. You know, I think it sounds like the TMDL work that we've been doing is still important, and that's still a direction we should pursue, but it's not quite enough. And we don't yet, it seems, have the answer to what else we should be doing or how we should change that work. How do we get to that answer quickly so that we can adjust what we're doing or add more onto it?
Yeah, I absolutely endorse the importance of the major restoration and conservation projects that have been done and are ongoing. I mean, the marsh restorations, the restoration that is planned on Ward Creek is really, really important. And I could go on and on about how important I think these restoration actions are. So keeping sediment out of the lake, keeping other pollutants out of the lake, all of these actions typically help to reduce the nutrients coming in. I think the first fastest thing we could do really is to synthesize some of the research that we already have, some of the data that we already have, to, you know, try to modernize the nutrient budget, for example. So this would be an accounting of where the nutrients enter, for example, coming in through atmosphere, through streams, through, you know, smoke deposition, through internal cycling. So it's been a long time since those nutrient budgets were done, and the lake is in a different place than it was 20 some odd years ago. And our technology and our knowledge is substantially advanced since then too. So I think with the data in hand, we could actually make some substantial strides. And of course, we have great science partnership through the Tahoe Science Advisory Council and the ongoing discussions that always happen among all of the scientists. There's tremendous capacity up here to address these questions. But the fastest would be synthesizing the data that we already have.
Great, thank you. One other thing, you talked about satellites. You know, I know, even though people aren't supposed to do it, that some people do things they aren't supposed to, like, and a lot of that, I think, I imagine there's a lot of lakefront owners and other people who are massively fertilizing their lawns. I mean, I've seen how beautiful they are, and I know that doesn't just happen up here. And with your, you know, you were talking about using satellites. It seems like that's something that's really easy to monitor these days and help us enforce those protections, and maybe get people to change their ways, because it seems like that would be a really high concentration of nutrients, specifically designed to help things grow, flowing into the lake. Is that something you guys are doing, can do?
Yeah, I mean, all of the remote sensing imagery can be used in these ways, and something like the, you know, the color of lawn or other, you know, land use is something that can definitely be analyzed. Yeah. Yeah, the question is it significant? And I don't know the answer. So we have not been doing that analysis of the land use color next to the conditions in the water, but it certainly is something that can be done. It is absolutely tractable. Yeah.
Then I saw Cindy, and then I saw Alexis, and then Shelley, unless somebody else at that table, just give me one of these. Go ahead, Cindy.
Thank you, Stephanie. Really appreciate, and I'm not going to get my terminology correct, but the blankets of algae. I'm sorry, what was that again?
Metaphyton.
Thank you. I can't scroll back and find it. You mentioned that in other lakes that you've worked on directly tied to human impacts. Can you talk about that at all? Or if there's specific corollaries?
Yeah, so there was a study done within the last 10 years, and I'm totally blanking on the date, but it was a group of scientists who work on lakes all over the world that were experiencing nearshore algal blooms. They are happening everywhere. And many of them are happening in big blue lakes where it doesn't seem like there's an obvious source. And so, you know, one of the aspects that is affecting all of these lakes is warming. So warming temperature, you know, stuff grows faster, just in general, stuff grows faster when it's warm, but also the chemistry changes in that shallow water in ways that can release more of the nutrients that otherwise are kind of bound up in the sediment. And so that can be affecting nearshore growth of algae. The situations that I studied before coming here were Lake Baikal in Siberia, so a very remote lake. The algal blooms that would happen near shore there were pretty clearly tied to human habitation. It's a very different environment there because, I mean, the towns there are, you know, it's still just dirt roads. You know, there's only a couple hundred people who live there year round. So it's a very different situation, but in those cases, it was probably, you know, sewage with some contributions from the sediment from their dirt roads. In Olympic National Park, it seemed to be aging septic systems on Lake Crescent. It looked like aging septic systems on Lake Pend Oreille and Priest Lake as well. So those, and of course, you know, we got the sewage out of the basin so long ago that we're not pointing fingers at sewage anymore. So we have to look to some of these other sources.
To other causes. Has there been research on lake level to the algal blooms? Living near an area where I see the shoreline erosion during big storms and watch it eating away, I go, God, that's a lot of nutrients just washing in to the near shore.
Yeah, I refreshed my memory on this a couple of weeks ago, I think after State of the Lake and some conversations, and the estimates that were done in some previous research were that the amount that would be contributed by that erosion was it was not substantial compared to the other sources of sediment. Okay. So that study was done some time ago, but it was a good, solid, peer-reviewed publication.
Good to know. And then finally, you didn't mention the word that we hear a lot about, microplastics. So I want to talk about that.
Yep. So yeah, we still work closely with Monica Arienzo at DRI. So, you know, Monica is really on the cutting edge with microplastics. We're super lucky to have her expertise in our region. And so we collect samples for Monica and get updates from her. But right now we're not monitoring microplastics ourselves, and we collaborate with Monica rather than trying to spin up our own operation to do that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Alexis?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the presentation. I'm curious when we as TRPA got rid of the two-stroke engines that are on the lake, and the policy change and actually impact on the lake. And I'm just curious if we've thought about other or studied other policy changes like that, and what we could do. I mean, I've heard from folks who are like, if we had fewer vehicles that were coming into the lake, that would have a direct impact. But obviously what we're talking about today isn't necessarily linked there, or even if we didn't allow for gas powered boats. Just curious what your thought is on those items.
Yeah, I mean, I think all of these things are linked. I just did a podcast yesterday and emphasized that I think all these issues are linked. And then I was listening to Julie's interview on the same podcast, and I was like, oh, that's exactly what Julie said. These things are all linked. And so these are research questions, right? And I think the answers are knowable, but they require somebody taking the time and the energy and the smarts to sit down with the data and figure it out. I would love to have somebody look at analyzing the data before and after the two-stroke engine ban, which I think is also a great success for Tahoe. The traffic patterns and air pollution, I think, can be studied. We now have some researchers from UC Davis who are going to put some air quality sensors up on our buoys, and in part because of wildfire, but also that will also give us the opportunity to look at the impact of air pollution just more generally on the lake, how much is coming in. And, I would love to have one of our atmospheric scientists look at whether inversions increase the amount of that pollution that actually makes it into the water, right? I mean, we all see inversions. We know that they happen, but we have the capacity at UC Davis to bring somebody here to look at it. We just need to hook her with the right incentives, right? But I think these are all great questions, and I do think that these issues are linked.
Then we'll go to Shelley and then to Nathan, and then I'll turn online.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for your presentation, Dr. Hampton. So obviously you've packed a lot into your presentation. I mean, there are a lot of variables, right? Some of them are natural causing. Some of them are things we don't live in a closed system, so we can't really, airflow is airflow, and pollutants come in, and there's atmospheric deposition, and so how do you filter out all of those unique variables if one of the questions we want answered is how can we modernize our TMDL technologies to be more efficient?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have great statistical approaches and a lot of data. I mean, that's how we do it, is that this community has invested in long-term data collection. So we have a lot of data. And that means that we are able to disentangle a lot of the potential drivers and start to infer with stronger confidence which one of those drivers may actually be instrumental. And I think that could help to identify what are some of the management or policy levers that could be suggested. So it is possible. Some of them may be so entangled that it's hard to make a call about which one is more important, but we have a lot of data and excellent statistical approaches that can be used.
Well, to a certain extent, it's like holding back the tide, right? The ultimate evolution of a mountain lake is a mountain meadow, right? So we know that there are natural processes that occur that may not be influenced by human beings. Obviously, human beings have had an impact here at Lake Tahoe. So I just, at what point does making increased progress become problematic, I guess? I've listened to all these presentations. I've been on this board for 23 years. The problems haven't changed that significantly. Some of the solutions have been more unique, and I applaud everything this agency and the communities have done to do their fair share to contribute to the enhancement of lake clarity. But is there a way of kind of distilling everything to such a great extent that we know, this is what we have, we can influence. This is where we need to focus our efforts. There are natural processes that are underway that we have no control over. And so I think synthesizing all that data is very important so that we as an agency can focus on the things that we can have an impact on.
I totally agree. Yeah. And I think also looking back at the history in the Tahoe Basin of doing audacious things that protect the lake.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Nathan, Mr. Tolbert.
Yeah, you kind of asked part of what I was going to do. So appreciate going after that, because that was going to be kind of my question, is how do we distinguish, given some of the things you've mentioned, like the phytoplankton are increasingly responsible, but how do we distinguish between what is a clarity problem that we can reasonably manage locally and what is just a natural lake process in our evolving times with the warming and stuff like that? And then does that target, should we maybe start considering adjusting our targets? Or is it scientifically achievable to get to our goals, knowing what we're finding out now?
Yeah, I mean, I understand that it's frustrating for everybody to be at this point where we're not seeing improvement that we expected to occur. I do think that based on data in hand, that we could get a better handle on what some of the key drivers are for water clarity, and that could help to indicate what are some of the levers that could be pulled. So, if we were to analyze the existing data to try to figure out which drivers seem important, we could also address it through modeling, trying to, do some computer simulations that are updated that help us to understand if we're trying to control nutrients more. We can identify a nutrient budget as the most important research question potentially. So I think it's sort of a cascade of research questions. There is what do the data already tell us are the most important drivers, and then let that inform the computer simulations of the way that nutrients and sediment flow through the basin. And that can help to identify where some of those key levers and knobs might be for managers and policymakers.
Please.
So this is my rookie question. So if we're looking at this, how do we distinguish between what our target is chasing clarity possibly a vanity thing that we're doing? And is the phytoplankton, that kind of stuff growing? Is that a naturally thing? Are we holding back Mother Nature at this point? Or how do you address that question between playing God now all of a sudden? You know what I mean? Am I phrasing it right? I'm not sure. Are you getting what I'm getting at?
Yeah.
I struggle with phrasing the questions sometimes.
No, I think we're too early in this process to say that it's a vanity project or to give up, right? I don't think we're there. I think that we have a lot of great data that we can answer some of these questions that'll help to determine, what are the right moves to make to be able to achieve some of those goals. So it's not, I don't think we're at a point where we should try to shift the goals, in my opinion, right?
And then from our board members on Zoom, I saw Cody's hand up first and then Alex. Cody, go ahead. But you're on mute, Cody.
Sorry about that. Yeah, great presentation. Thank you for being here today. There's so much information and so much work going on, and it's really great to see. My question is, I think about the areas of the lake that I go to, really like between Thunderbird Lodge and Glenbrook or Skunk Harbor area, and just how much clearer the water is in that area. And when you talked about human habitation, that's really like our biggest example of where there was no development and really little human habitation, less than anywhere in the lake. And I'm wondering, are we sampling in those areas and then maybe comparing it to somewhere like in front of Sugar Pine Point where there's some very good conservation, but little bits of development, and just seeing, and then of course, in areas where there's major development around the city and in other areas throughout the lake, just curious are we seeing the difference in those areas? Because I think that would just point to, what our real issue is potentially is development and human habitation and human activity. So just curious if we've kind of done that research to compare in the different, areas of the lake.
Yeah, that is definitely one of the interesting areas for research for us, and getting the helicopter imaging working now, and potentially, especially with the satellite image potential, that would help us to address some of these questions of how the landscape and proximity to human habitation is, whether it's associated, to what extent it's associated with some of those nearshore algal bloom or other nuisance conditions. So we're definitely poised for that kind of research question at this point.
Great, thank you.
Alex?
Great, thank you. Really appreciate the presentation. Two-part question, and sorry, my internet had cut out briefly, so if someone else does, I can just skip over it. But I'm curious what you can tell us about the impacts of herbicide application on forests and how that can impact lake quality. And then second part of that question, if the U.S. Forest Service does go forward in the herbicide application they're planning around the Tahoe Basin, will you be studying the before and after effects of that?
Let's see. So I understand the concerns around the potential glyphosate applications. I do not have direct experience with studying the effects of pesticides in water. I mean, I read as much as any other aquatic scientist about it and know that there are dangers of pesticides in water for aquatic health. I don't know the specifics of what could occur, what is planned. I do check in frequently with my colleagues at our conservation nonprofits and colleagues at TRPA for updates. And I do know that Keep Tahoe Blue is planning to do some sampling before and after any potential application. And they let me know that they have talked about that in a public meeting. So I don't think I'm spilling any beans there. So, I mean, I'm certainly interested and Turk is here and ready to help in any way that folks would find useful.
Great, thank you.
All right, I'm not seeing any other questions or comments. So thank you again so much, Dr. Hampton, for being here. Again, this was informational only, so we can move on to the next item. Thank you. Yeah. Director Reagan?
Madam Chair, while we're setting up for the next, I just want to thank Stephanie. Thank you, Dr. Hampton. And it's just, I was very excited and engaged. So picoplankton, wow, very exciting. I want to thank you for your leadership in bringing more scientists from the campus. And that was a vision that was set out early in your tenure here. And to have fresh eyes with an experience globally is going to benefit the lake. So thank you. Appreciate it. And I think we're setting up for the next.
Our next panel, just so everybody's on the same page, literally is on page 73. This is agenda item 8B, which is the update on the Tahoe Science Advisory Council clarity work. And Dan Segan and Bob Larson, whenever you guys are ready, are our presenters. Heads up to the board too, this is also informational only, but certainly we'll have time for questions and comments after the presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Dan Segan again, TRPA staff. And Julie asked me to move up here to protect our next presenter. So maybe you were too harsh on the last one. We are pleased to continue our departure from sort of the day-to-day tasks that you do and again, focus on the big picture here. And so I'm pleased to welcome Bob Larson, the program officer for the Tahoe Science Advisory Council, to join us and update us on the activities of that council. And I think especially in light of the summit last week, we talk a lot about Team Tahoe and the partnership that makes it run on the political spectrum. And that partnership is replicated in the science realm as well. It's not one scientist or two scientists, it's a whole team of scientists that are working together to support our mission. And we're pleased to welcome Bob to talk about some of the work that they're doing.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak today. And thank you, Dr. Hampton, for that great presentation. I will do my best to not overlap, but I will reinforce some points today. I'd like to start by setting the stage and maybe anchor this discussion a bit in some of the comments that we heard this morning. The TMDL science, which is now about 20 years old, assumed that if we reduce pollutant inputs, that clarity would improve. I think we just heard very clearly from Dr. Hampton that the lake is more complicated than that, and things have changed. Next slide, please. Our partners are doing the work. Local governments and state highway departments are meeting their pollutant load targets. The stormwater infrastructure, our watershed restoration activities, these things are working. We know that we are reducing pollutant loads to the lake, but the exact impact of those investments and those activities remains uncertain. Next slide. To address the ongoing questions related to the lake, the council has established a water quality work group. That group meets almost every month to talk about seasonal conditions, monitoring data, and different research priorities. You can imagine that there is strong interest in the topic, and we do see regular participation from both our agency partners as well as a broad suite of different academic institutions. And Dan just mentioned this, right? It's really in the spirit of Tahoe partnerships. This group is a collaborative bi-state effort. It really offers a venue for scientists and managers to get together, roll up their sleeves, and talk about everything from nearshore health, wildfire ash, and of course, Lake Tahoe's clarity. Next slide, please. So the clarity issue, of course, is not new. The council has been working on this topic since its inception. There are a variety of different reports and different projects that you can look at on the council's website. I encourage you to go there and look at some of these things. If you have specific questions, please reach out. Happy to direct you to those different reports. But the council's focus can really be distilled down into these two areas, which are in-lake processes and pollutant loading. Next slide, please. So we've learned a lot in the past few years, and Stephanie discussed all of these points far more eloquently than I ever can. So I'll be brief here, but this first point is important and worth reiterating. We don't see uniform patterns across seasons. Winter clarity seems to have stabilized. It occasionally hits impressive milestones, while summer clarity continues to decline. That tells us that there are different drivers that are operating in different seasons. And these are, so these points are actually just kind of the cliff notes, I'd say, of Stephanie's presentation. Biological factors and changing physical conditions are the key parts to that puzzle. Zooplankton grazing and phytoplankton blooms play an important role. And at the same time, we know the lake is warming, and those warming conditions are changing the stratification and mixing patterns. And there are a number of outstanding questions about the mechanisms that cause particles to clump and settle. Next slide. To dig deeper into the clarity issue, the council convened a two-day workshop on Lake Tahoe's clarity. We brought together the region's leading scientists and resource managers to talk about what we've learned and what we still don't know. That workshop led directly to an independent review of the lake's monitoring program, essentially asking, are we monitoring the right things in the right places and at the right times? The findings highlighted critical data gaps. And again, Stephanie mentioned these, right? We have data gaps in both biology and particle dynamics that need to be addressed. Building on that work, the council successfully secured new funding targeted at both in-lake monitoring and modeling tasks. I'm pleased to say that some of those monitoring enhancements are underway now, and that new data is going to help our understanding and inform the next generation of those tools that we talked about to guide future policy and investment. Next slide. So that brings us to the pollutant loading question. Reducing sediment and pollutant loads have been the core focus of our lake restoration efforts. We haven't conducted detailed basin-wide loading analyses since the TMDL was developed, and there are three key reasons why we should update those estimates. First is implementation assessment. Right? Given our focus on load reduction, we need to know how conditions have changed in the past 15 years to better understand the value of our investments and see what we've been getting for all of the work that we've been doing at Lake Tahoe. Second, the climate is changing, right? We know that the lake is warming. We know that there are more frequent atmospheric rivers, rain on snow events, wildfires. All of these things influence how loads are brought to the lake, and we need to account for those factors in our loading assessment. And finally, the technology and the empirical data have improved significantly, right? Again, it was 15, almost 20 years ago since that first watershed model was developed. We have learned a lot since then, and we can take advantage of those advancements to refine what we know now. There are a couple actions underway currently that I'd like to highlight. On the tracking and regulatory side, the Lahontan Water Board is leading a project now to review the Lake Clarity crediting program and the associated tools with the intent of outlining a clear plan for modernizing that system. At the same time, the Council's Water Quality Work Group has been having a robust discussion about the opportunity to update and improve our watershed model for Lake Tahoe that will provide new insight into the current pollutant load levels. Next slide, please. So where do we go from here? I think the path forward is twofold and quite simple. First, and we talked about this just now in the last presentation, but we need to continue the important work of reducing pollutant loads. Despite the uncertainty about the different processes and the exact benefit of our actions, we know that Lake Tahoe waters will benefit from fewer fine sediments and nutrients. And secondly, and importantly, we need to support the science. We know that there are additional data needs. We know that we need a new model to predict clarity. We know that we need new tools to consider the value of our previous assumptions and set our expectations for the future. The Council has had some success in reaching in bringing new money to the basin for science, but we need consistent, predictable science funding to truly protect Lake Tahoe. Next slide, please. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Questions or comments? Starting this way, coming through. Shelley?
Bob, would it be possible for you just to kind of touch on how the Science Council is integrating its research with other organizations like UC Davis? In the presentation materials that were given us, there's a reference to advances in environmental stewardship, obviously scientific advancements, engineering advancements. Seems to me that, you know, the Science Council obviously functions at a different level than UC Davis in terms of the work it does to collect data, but there obviously are areas of important overlap. And I'm just kind of curious as to how you integrate all of that and how you interface with one another to make sure that there's not unnecessary duplication and that the two organizations are benefiting from the research of the other.
Yeah, and as Dan indicated, thank you for the question. The Science Council is a true science partnership. UC Davis is one of the founding members of the Tahoe Science Advisory Council. They sit on the council and play a critical role. So I think all of our science partners know that UC Davis has been working, gathering data and leading science in Lake Tahoe since the 50s. And so oftentimes it's really a conversation with UC Davis directly in terms of what data are available and what work has been done and how we can build on that and bring additional expertise to bear. And so I would say that it's less of a question of how the council works with UC Davis, but rather than that UC Davis is a key member and part of the council and driving a lot of the council conversation as it relates to Lake Tahoe's clarity.
Hopefully, if there are improvements to the TMDL technology, it will involve a retrofit of existing infrastructure. I mean, speaking on behalf of, you know, other members of this board who represent local governments who have invested a huge amount of money in the TMDL. I just want to be mindful of the fact that whatever advancements that we realize, whatever technologies have been improved upon, whatever the, you know, the adaptation is that's required, that it can be done within the existing system.
I'm going to assume that by existing system, you mean the Lake Clarity Crediting Program and the associated compliance assessment, or am I missing in terms of what infrastructure? The actual physical infrastructure, I would say that the physical infrastructure, as far as stormwater management, the street sweeping, the treatment basins, all of the things that we do to reduce loading will continue to remain a key part of our implementation approach. I think the question moving forward is how far can we get with those improvements and how can we set expectations associated with that? But I think as my closing slide highlighted, right, like reducing pollutant loads is going to continue to be a key part of the conversation. It is what we can control. It is what it is. It is the one area where we know we've had an impact and we know how we can address that impact. And so I think reducing pollutant loads by local government and by state highway departments will continue to be a key factor. It's just a matter of, again, how far that will get us and what additional elements we can do to further advance our goals for improving Lake Tahoe's clarity.
Any other questions or comments? Ruben, yeah.
Thank you for your presentation. Would you say there's a correlation? I know you mentioned that the water clarity diminishing during the summertime with the previous research that was explained with the plankton. Do you see the same correlation in your research, or are you looking to expand on that research?
Yeah, I don't want to suggest that that my research or that the council's research isn't somehow different than what you just heard. It's all one and the same. And so I was just summarizing more or less what Dr. Hampton has summarized and what the knowledge is there. So the short answer is yes. I would say there's a correlation there. There's been a long conversation for many years now about increasing phytoplankton blooms and how that's impacting Lake Tahoe's clarity. The challenge, I think that Stephanie highlighted and that I'll highlight again is we don't have the data. We haven't been gathering the data enough, and there's also core research necessary to understand those impacts, and it's highly variable. So we need additional data, additional research to understand that. But again, there's nothing that the council is doing that UC Davis is not, or vice versa. They're one and the same, I would say, in many ways.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to go online. Cody. Oh, I'm sorry. Cody, and then I'll come back, Nathan. My apologies. Go ahead, Cody. But you're on mute again.
Sorry, I keep missing the mute. Yeah, thanks for the presentation and the work being done. I'm glad to see definitely the pollutant loads continuing to be a priority. I'm curious though, the monitoring, with our natural marshes, and really I'm thinking about the upper Truckee River where, we've just been able to, the CTC got Motel 6 and is, fully rehabilitating that into a natural marsh again. And are we monitoring the effect of that and the pollutant loads that are potentially, hopefully reducing that our natural marshes are handling?
It's a great question, and I appreciate you asking it. Actually, Dr. Hampton and I were having a conversation this morning just about this question of how can we do a better job of assessing the benefit of individual projects and then collective actions overall. There's been a lot of work done in the Upper Truckee Marsh, both pre-project and post-project, for different phases of that work. And so as we move forward with additional work in the Upper Truckee, whatever that looks like as it relates to the Motel 6 site, I know that the team there is already thinking about opportunities to gather data ahead of time and then collect data to understand what's happening afterwards.
Great. And yeah, I think, one of the things that really does come to mind is the Caldor burn scar, which, out basically right by the airport in that area. And, as it's being talked about later today, there's potential of using conventional herbicides there. And I just think it'd be really important to do some real research on what the effect of the Upper Truckee Marsh would be and the potential of plant life that could be killed downstream and downflow of the burn scar. So I think, as you guys are doing that work, I think it's really important that we have that scientific look at that before we make any type of decision.
Absolutely.
And Nathan?
Wrong button, there we go. So since I so failed my last question with the previous, I'm glad I got a chance to, so I could restate because thankfully I threw it into ChatGPT so I could get to the question that I really wanted. So with what we're learning about biology of the lake, is clarity still the best measure of Lake Tahoe's health? Is I guess what I'm getting to. And if plankton and other natural processes are affecting clarity more than we thought, does our current clarity goal adequately account for that? Or are there other measures we should be considering in conjunction with clarity for the health of the lake and its environment?
Thank you for the question. Very well stated. This is an age-old question, and what I want to again harken back to some of the comments that Stephanie made. The Secchi disc and Lake Tahoe's clarity via the Secchi disc is not the only measure that we take. There is a ton of different ways that we measure the health of Lake Tahoe and track trends in terms of water quality and improvement, including clarity. Clarity is measured in different ways other than just using the Secchi disc. I think the core question is whether or not there are things that are changing and whether or not that target remains the right target. And that is a fair question. And I will, I think say the same as Stephanie in that I don't think we know yet what the right target is. We built the TMDL again 20 years ago around a target that we knew what at that time seemed achievable based on the science and information we had. We are learning more and we need more tools to be able to understand what the potential restoration could look like. based on all of the work that we have done and what we could do. And there, as you said, there are new factors, and we've talked a lot about the biological drivers and other elements. Understanding those impacts in relation to our opportunity to reduce pollutant loads and influence other things. Again, we just don't know the answer as to whether or not we can get to 100 feet or whether that should be changed. And that's where we need the science to inform that discussion.
All right, last call for board member questions or comments. And I know Director Reagan, a couple points. Go ahead.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Bob and Stephanie, for great presentations. I just had a couple wrap-up comments, and I do appreciate the board's engagement. This is fascinating. It's like we're in limnology class together. It's really fun. Limnology, fascinating. I wanted to underscore a couple points and connect the dots. You know, if you think of big lakes like Tahoe, we're talking like, 39 trillion gallons of water. It's the oldest lake in North America, third oldest in the world. And so you think of the time span of ecological processes, they don't necessarily line up with our short window in that. And I'm thinking of Vice Chair Henigman's, like, what can we do now? And that is always the tension. We still may be experiencing issues from grazing, from mining, gravel pits in the lake. So much disturbance happened, the clear cutting of the Comstock, these big pulses of storms that we're having in these critical watersheds that were once really disturbed. We're learning as we go. But the bottom line is, like, we can keep pollution out of the lake. So I want to assure the public that commented earlier and all those that are listening, we can affect change. We can keep fine sediment and nitrogen and phosphorus out of the lake. And we're going to keep doing that. And a big commendation to the local jurisdiction partners that are on the front line of streeping the roads to make sure that sediment that goes down, or things to keep the roads safe in the winter, and the sanding and particles that go down, they're immediately picking them up as soon as possible. And actually, over the course of a winter, they're picking up more than they even put down. These street sweepers cost about $500,000. They used to be $500,000. They're probably $1 million now per unit. Those are real costs. And so the TMDL was $10 million of science and 20 years of work with researchers from all over the world. And you think of the amount of work that's been done at the lake compared to other lakes globally, it's incredible. But yet so many questions remain. And I heard Bob make the comment about funding. We need more money for science. That was a conversation we had at the summit last week. And there's a lot of good work that's being done. And then there's a lot of work that is sometimes invisible to the board or to the community, but like our staff are working with homeowners associations to work on their native landscaping plans. The Tahoe Keys Property Association, which is often looked at in terms of the grassy areas in the Tahoe Keys, they have no phosphorus fertilizer going on in that whole community of 1,500 homes, and a lot of other homeowners associations are doing that. We have fertilizer management plans that we work with golf courses and other big users and landscapers. And so there's a lot going on behind the scenes that our staff are doing with our partners at the conservation districts and others to make sure that we're doing all we can to keep that sediment from running into the lake. So just wanted to underscore a couple of those points. And I just appreciate the great discussion and all the questions. And they will continue to be asked and investigated with our science partners. So really appreciate those we heard from today. But to keep in mind, there are 12 institutions that make up the Science Council, even our federal partners like the USGS and the Forest Service. So at all levels, at universities, the federal government, and scientists from around the world. So appreciate the board's conversation.
Thank you. Thanks, Director Reagan. And thank you so much, Mr. Larson, for the presentation. That moves us on to agenda item 8C, which is the Tahoe Meadows Winter Safety Management Master Plan briefing. Information is on page 79. I'm going to turn this over to Shannon and to our U.S. Forest Service partner, I think, to present. And a quick reminder to the board, this is also informational, but we will have questions and comments at the end.
Madam Chair, while they're setting up, this is Julie Reagan, TRPA's Executive Director. I just wanted to introduce Shannon as she tees this up, and thank the Forest Service and State of Nevada representative who are here to share some of the latest information about like what's going on atop Mount Rose You hear this in public comment, both on a winter basis and a summer basis. It's a very active area for the community to experience nature. So just appreciate our partners for coming and to participate, and I'll turn it over to Shannon.
Thanks, Director Reagan and Chair. Good morning, governing board members. My name's Shannon Friedman, and I'm pleased to introduce the agenda item, which is an informational update on the Tahoe Meadows Winter Safety Management Master Plan Briefing, and introduce my colleague, Sheva Gabor. She is the Nevada liaison with the U.S. Forest Service Intermountain Region. The master plan is, next slide, please. The master plan is being developed collaboratively with the U.S. Forest Service, the Nevada Division of Outdoor Recreation, and the Nevada Department of Transportation, with the goal of supporting safe, sustainable, and well-managed winter recreation access at Tahoe Meadows. Next slide, please. Tahoe Meadows is located off of State Route 431 or Montrose Highway. It's just south of the summit in Washoe County, Nevada. It is a popular year-round recreation destination, but sitting at nearly 9,000 feet in elevation, it's receives snow earlier in the year and retains it longer. So it's very popular for winter recreation, especially because of its close proximity to the Reno area. State Route 431 also serves as the main connection between Lake Tahoe and the Incline Village area to the Reno metropolitan area. So it serves both daily commuters as well as people using the corridor for recreation. Similar to other highways in the region, the primary access to recreation along this corridor is the highway, and particularly in the winter, people are parking along the highway shoulder to access recreation, which creates conflicts and an unsafe environment for users. A majority of the planning area does fall right outside of the Tahoe Basin, so outside of the TRPA jurisdiction, but we still felt it was important to bring this item to the board and for TRPA to be engaged in the planning process, because what happens right outside the basin still impacts the plans and the policies we do here. And safe access to recreation is a goal, even if it's directly outside of the basin. And the need for safe, sustainable access doesn't stop at jurisdictional boundaries. So we're staying engaged and pleased to, be a partner and help with this planning effort. Next slide, please. And now I'm going to hand it off to Sheva, who's going to go into more detail about the Tahoe Meadows Management Plan. Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair and board members, and thank you for having us here today. I'd also like to thank Director Vincent Guthrow for helping to arrange this and introduce my state colleague.
Good morning, Denise Baronio. I'm the administrator for the Nevada Division of Outdoor Recreation. So I'm just here for support and any questions today.
She's going to back clean up after I forget half of what I'm going to say. So we'd also like to acknowledge Nevada Department of Transportation. Strangely, the transportation engineer did not want to come present with us. He said we could handle this part. But we do have a great partnership going right now. I wanted to leave this photo in. It was our title slide for the workshop we recently did, but it really fits the saying, a picture is worth 1,000 words. You see here, we have a heavily populated highway with winter conditions and a snowmobile being manipulated across the street. It's a snowmobile in this picture, but it could be families with sleds, snowshoers, cross-country skiers. You see a lot of crazy things going on the highway on the peak days. In the Toyabe Forest Plan, this area is designated as semi-primitive and managed for dispersed recreation. So there's no designated parking here during the winter. There's no trash. There's no restroom facilities. The heaviest use is on holiday weekends and what are the bluebird days after winter storms. And then, like Shannon said, that draws a lot of visitation. It's one of the nearest places to pull off the highway on the way up from Reno. We have Tahoe residents who use it. I've heard that there are actually a lot of Bay Area residents too using it as a destination. So as our surrounding communities have increased in population, the use has increased, but I will say it's been known as a problem area for a couple of decades. Lots of activities. Again, snowmobiling is allowed on the north side of the highway. The north side of the highway is also the informal sled hill Nordic skiing and cross-country skiing, Nordic skiing and snowshoeing more on the other side of the highway. And then, of course, parking and even double parking is a problem. It interferes with the commuter route from Reno to Lake Tahoe, and it interferes with NDOT's priority, which is maintenance of the highway for safe access. And I should also say, not just the safety issues aren't just for the visitors and the commuters, they're also for our maintenance personnel and our law enforcement personnel and first responders if they have to come up there to respond to an incident and there's congestion and they have access problems. So next slide, please. Okay, so we've known about this for decades, and there were a couple of attempts to address the issue, including back about a decade ago, we had a collaborative effort. It actually was what resulted in the flashing sign that goes into that area that warns people about congestion and the lower speed limit during snow conditions of 25 miles an hour. There were some other potential solutions identified, but it was just recently that the Forest Service, both the Humboldt-Toyabe and the Lake Tahoe Basin Management Unit, the Nevada Division of Outdoor Rec, and the Nevada Department of Transportation signed on to an agreement called the Nevada Recreation Shared Stewardship Agreement and committed to work together to address recreation issues. And we selected this issue as one of our marquee initiatives under that agreement. The Forest Service manages the land, the majority of the land on both sides of the highway. NDOT manages the highway, including the right-of-way. And our partners, Nevada Division of Outdoor Recreation, are helping us to convene the discussions. We started by working with the National Park Service Rivers, Trails, and Conservation Assistance Program. They helped us develop a situation assessment that led us up to the master planning efforts. So they conducted interviews to help narrow down the issues, narrow down the key stakeholders, and advise us to a potential public engagement process. We finished that in the spring of 2025. We've now started into the next step and the final step, except for implementation, which is development of the master plan design workshop, who many of you may be familiar with, is our consultant for that. And it was funded through an economic development assistance grant that Endor received from Department of Tourism and Cultural Affairs. We're on a tight timeline. We're looking to the end of November to complete that plan. So the purpose of the plan will be to identify realistic strategies to make winter use safer in the area. It will spell out the next steps that we need to implement those strategies. It'll identify any hurdles and challenges, and it'll help us work to get those funded and get them in a place to be implemented. Next slide. This is a little bit of a zoom out on the area for additional context if you're not familiar. That green area up at the top is actually the Mount Rose Wilderness. And the white square is kind of to the southeast, well, northeast, southeast. You can tell my directions are terrible. I have to look at the compass in the car. One of those is Mount Rose Ski Resort. And then the one just above it, when you're looking at the map, is Sky Tavern, which is operated by the city of Reno. So there you can kind of see the meadows is that orange blob there, but in reality, it crosses the highway. The upper part is the sled hill. The flatter part is what's called the meadows, but the whole area is what we're talking about. Next slide. So what the plan actually is, it is a framework to address winter safety and access. We are focused on that as our goal. We are working with stakeholders in the public to tell us what they would like to see in the area and what they think might work to get us to those conditions. And then, as I said, it's a guide to help us once we start to implement, including identifying funding sources. And I think that's it for that slide. You can go to next slide. What it is not. We are not looking to revisit allowable uses or resolve all user conflicts. I'm going to be direct here. There are stakeholders that would like us to revisit snowmobile use over the snow motorized recreation in the area. We are not planning to do that. I'm not going to speak for my colleagues from the Lake Tahoe Basin Management Unit. I know they have some winter planning that's not finished yet, but on behalf of the Humboldt-Toyabe, we are not looking at that. We are looking at winter safety along the highway corridor. We are also not discussing changes in land ownership as a part of this. So I know there's been some discussion about conveyance to different entities to manage it. That's not part of this discussion. I can tell you that whoever manages that land, there is an issue because you have major recreation use along a highway with winter conditions, and that's not going to change no matter who manages that land. Next slide. Oh, and I should add, so we are talking only winter recreation, but when we look at strategies, we are going to look at how they might function during the summer. So we're not turning our heads and just saying we're separating everything. Obviously, if we build additional infrastructure that's available during the summer, that might cause impacts. We're trying to be aware of how we might squeeze use around and not create unintended consequences, but also possibly if something can benefit summer use, we will look at that. We are also looking at the entire Mount Rose corridor for strategies, even though we're only focused on that portion for the problem statement. It builds on previous work. So we did do the situation assessment and we finished that up this spring, actually, I believe, unless I'm completely losing track of time. Yeah, which is possible. There have been various studies over the years. NDOT had a road safety audit in about 2010, 2011. I think it was just after the last collaborative effort. That's very interesting reading. I reread it again before this meeting, and they talk about some potential strategies. The Forest Service was a part of those discussions, as was Tahoe Rim Trail Association. So we're going to be looking closely at that and some of the ramifications they identified at the time. The Nevada Statewide Comprehensive Outdoor Recreation Plan, the Mount Rose Scenic Byway Plan. This is a scenic byway, so we'll be looking to align with that. And then, of course, the forest plans for both forests. There's some projects underway. Tahoe Meadows Interpretive Loop, that's primarily a summer project. Tahoe Meadows South Parking Concept, that's the Incline Village General Improvement District parcel that was conveyed as part of the Incline Lake acquisition. With a commitment to support winter recreation. And then I want to note Mount Rose Ski Tahoe developed a 400+ parking space sled hill, tubing hill last year. It opened partway through the year, so we don't yet know the total impact it's going to have, but that might help alleviate some of the pressure. Next slide. Okay, that looks like it's duplicating. So. That's okay. I'll say it again. That's all right. So I want to explain how this is working a little bit. Public observations, which is the stage we're in now, and have been, because this is not the first time we reached out. Like I said, we had about a year-long situation assessment. We are taking everything we hear. We are going to look at our agency missions, our sideboards, what our priorities are. And then we are going to determine what's feasible to do and how we might do it. And that's going to be the master plan. So essentially a filtering process of what's been suggested, how does that align? And then what's feasible will end up in the master plan. As far as where we specifically are, we held a stakeholder workshop 2 weeks ago. Yeah. That was well attended. We are about to hold a public meeting. We are currently discussing whether to delay it a week to September 9th, partially because of the hawk fire and the bug fire affecting Reno and affecting our ability to get notice out. And then we will have one more stakeholder meeting towards mid-October, and then we will go back and digest everything that we've heard and come up with a master plan proposal. I think that, go to next slide. I'm not. Okay, stakeholders, got to show all the logos. We've consistently tried to think of who we should invite, make sure they get the invitation. That doesn't mean they participate. We don't have total control over that, unfortunately, but I will tell you, we have tried repeatedly to access people that we think have a stake in this area. In this last round, design workshop is actually reaching out and doing small group interviews where they get a couple of people who missed the main meeting and trying to get their input specifically to make sure we've covered everybody. And we've consistently asked who else do we need to talk to? So these are some of the stakeholder groups so far. We're happy to add if we learn of others. And we're looking forward to sort of the end of this phase and moving on to what strategies we could apply there. I do want to say one word about extra parking and infrastructure. That's not necessarily where this is going to go. It's certainly something we're looking at. But one thing we've heard from some of the stakeholders already is concern about changing the character of the area. I think as board members, you probably hear this kind of thing all the time. You might jump to a solution like more parking, but it's going to change the area if you add parking and restrooms. And it's been pretty clear that some people are looking for a different experience. So there's going to be a lot to balance. And with that, I'll take any questions or punt them to Denise and beg her to answer one or the other.
Thank you so much for the presentation. Board members, questions or comments?
Thank you for coming and thank you for your efforts on this. This is just in my district and has been something that my constituents want to see something be done about it. I agree with that's a solution. Maybe it's not. It's just a safety issue and making sure that all people have access to recreation, and it's a recreation corridor that you can easily get to. And it's Tahoe almost feels even harder for folks from outside the basin because there's just more logistics. And with this, it's easier, the meadows, for a lot of different diverse folks to access recreation. So I appreciate the update, and I leadership in that.
I appreciate that. I did not provide this context at the start. Sheva Gabor for the record, if I need to say that, but I'm a 19-year resident of the Basin. I own a home with my husband up in State Line, and my brother lives in Reno. So Tahoe Meadows is where I used to go meet him and my nephews to play in the snow. So I have firsthand knowledge of like, that's the place if you're driving from Reno where you want to go and snowshoe or feed chickadees, which we didn't talk about. So yeah, it is an important place. And one thing that consistently came up in the comments was the broad range of users who go there. And then another part is it's free, right? You know, some places aren't free to go. So that's another big consideration is what happens if you make something that, and that's going on in the basin right now with the discussion of recreation fees, like what happens when you change a place that's free to a paid area. So again, maybe not parking on the forest, maybe somewhere else, maybe trying to have a mix of opportunities there, depending on what people want. Thank you.
Vince G.
Vince G here. First off, it's more of a comment and just a sort of a narrative. First, yeah, thank you so much. I know we sort of did this on the fly, but I really thought, I know it's out, it was mentioned at the beginning that it's a little bit outside of TRPA's sort of jurisdiction, but I appreciate you coming. I think one of the things I wanted you to get at, which you succeeded on, was how those complicated management challenges do not change based on who owns the, you know, who is the land management agency. So, but I appreciate you also highlighting some of the challenges of, oh yeah, bathrooms. Oh, that probably doesn't work for some. And so anyways, I appreciate that. I do want to thank Commissioner Hill for her attention to this area. I know we talked about this sort of offline too, and we'll continue to have those conversations. So thank you for bringing it here. And it was mostly just a comment. So thanks.
And then I have Cindy and then Shelley, and anyone else, just get my attention. Go ahead.
Well, thank you. And I really appreciate hearing and getting this update and the efforts that have gone into this. You know, I said at our governing board retreat, we've got to be looking out 20 or 30 years, right? Or longer in everything that we're doing. And as we see the growth in Northern Nevada and Northern California and the demand for recreational access of all abilities, you know, we've got to be planning for it. That is our responsibility. And even though it's just outside the basin, I, as a Nordic skier, Nevada Nordic is a phenomenal experience for those of you who haven't been there, but don't park there or carpool or carpool. But it really is remarkable. And because of the high elevation, because of the early snowpack, many residents actually head over that way from the North Shore to ski there. So I just commend what you're doing. I hope that we as a board and you as agencies continue to look at the long-term changes that we're seeing in people's outdoor recreational needs, and that we find a way to make that safe and accessible. So thank you. And part of our longer term solution is how do we manage the people? Right?
I've been told by numerous people that what we do is people management, right? We're not really managing the resource, even the water quality discussion just now. It's all about how are people impacting the environment. So I think one of the things I've seen over the only 19 years is failing to anticipate how the development in the surrounding areas would change things at Lake Tahoe for outdoor recreation. And it seemed like during COVID, everything peaked and all of a sudden you turned around and there were people everywhere. So trying to anticipate is one of the hard parts. I'm pleased to announce that we are going to do more of that. We're about to sign a new recreation shared stewardship agreement. It's actually been 5 years since we signed the first one. So we looked at some of it and we're like, wow, isn't that quaint? And we're going to try to do a better job, not constraining ourselves to the current situation, looking out ahead.
Looking to the future. And we look at a different generational interests. When I look at my kids and now my grandkids, they're trying to get them outside. They want to be outside and doing outdoor experiences away from screen time, away from some of the other influences. So I think it's important for us to focus on what that's really going to mean in transportation and safety, right, Alexis?
Shelley?
I really commend you for doing this with a number of interested parties involved. I do think the idea of self-regulation is a little bit unrealistic. When you see what happens on a July 4th weekend in the Tahoe Basin, put out more garbage cans. We do our best to educate people about the importance of depositing the trash safely or removing it from wherever they're recreating. And in many cases, it falls on deaf ears. So, and that to me is going to be a huge challenge with the overlapping responsibilities. I know there's a reference to having ambassadors, but ambassadors, aren't law enforcement officers. And unfortunately, the vast majority of people, who have respect for the environment are going to do their very best, not to have a negative effect on the environment and not to insist that their, recreational needs are superior to others. But there are going to be those people who are going to push the envelope and are going to have to be held accountable and held in check. So, and I know that interestingly enough, on the stakeholders agreement matrix, enforcement and jurisdiction and conflicting uses were considered medium importance, or, there was a disagreement about agency roles and diverging views on the severity of conflicts. I guess only time will tell. And I suspect that at the end of the day, and I hate to be pessimistic, there's going to have to be an active enforcement element. Thank you.
All right, any other questions or comments? Not seeing any online. So thank you again so much for your presentation. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for the opportunity.
We'll move on then to agenda item 9 was our executive reports from Julie and Graham.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Julie Reagan, TRPA's Executive Director, for the record. Before I get into just a couple of announcements, I wanted to thank those that are coming into the meeting room here for the Environmental Improvement Program Committee. Give a little housekeeping. We are going to break for lunch. The board, after the conclusion of the main meeting, after the second public comment period, we will have lunch for the board across the hall at the Washoe Fremont. We are going to be cutting a cake for Mr. Hester. So in the interest of speeding things along, we might have dessert first and cut the cake, and then you can come back to the next meeting, those of you on the EIP committee meeting. So really appreciate the public's participation in the next committee meeting. With that, we'll go to the next slide because I just wanted to highlight the summit and thank the 10 governing board members who attended the summit. It was the highest participation rate I think we've ever had of the governing board at the 30th annual summit. And so much work went into the summit. I wanted to take the opportunity to thank our staff at TRPA, who really are the backbone support for the summit and have been since the very first one in 1997. TRPA had a very important role in that summit. Jim Beachy, my predecessor, who was the executive director of TRPA at the time in the 90s, was very much involved in launching what now is the EIP, the Environmental Improvement Program. So to be able to celebrate that with the principals that you see in the picture standing in front of our Team Tahoe banner, to have our 4 sitting U.S. senators attend. We had our 2 members of the House of Representatives. We have Governor Lombardo. Governor Newsom was also around for other festivities around the summit. It's just incredible to be able to amass that kind of support from Washington, from Carson City, and from Sacramento year over year for 30 years to recommit to Tahoe and collaboration to attack the very challenges that you just heard about in the briefings this morning. So big thank you to the board that participated. Big thank you to TRPA staff who worked with our very many partners, the Tahoe Fund, Keep Tahoe Blue, dozens and dozens of partners that worked on the booth fair, the education opportunities, all the pre-work. We had a 30 for 30 campaign that was underway. If you haven't had a chance to look at it, it chronicled 30 projects to celebrate the 30 years of the EIP. And it's incredible to see before and after. So please take a look at that and I'll make sure you have the link. I had the opportunity to recognize on stage Congressman Mark Amodei, who's retiring from Congress after 15 years, and that was a highlight. And the picture of Devin is through, oh, thank you, Tracy. That was good. You're tracking me. The picture of Devin is to remind me to give a special shout out to Devin, who is on some PTO, some vacation time, because he was about to fall over after this. Like he was working nights, weekends for a couple months. He actually made that Silver State Secchi disc that was presented to Congressman Amodei and made many mementos for our delegation. So he went above and beyond to support the summit. So really grateful for that. And a great picture here with Chair Williamson and board member Ben Kiekeffer ahead of the summit. So just thank you all for sharing in that important moment and to recommit to the work ahead because, you know, the challenges are unbelievable. Okay, we'll go to the next slide. Just a couple more announcements before I turn it over to our general counsel. Legislative updates. If we go back one more, Tracy. We missed that one. And then the Tahoe in depth, I want to make sure that you read the Tahoe in depth. It's around your places at the dais. This is looking back at 30 years. It's easy to forget, but a couple of stories actually went back and interviewed people like Gray Davis, former governor of California, Bruce Babbitt, Secretary of the Interior, who came to the first summit that explores the history that really has gotten us where we are today to tackle these incredible challenges and the investment that's come from all sectors, the federal support, Nevada, California, local governments, the private sector, the Washoe tribe, and all the community members that play a role in public-private partnerships to save the lake. So it's worth a read. We have it online, we have hard copies, but I would encourage the board, including new and to those who, like Shelley, have served for a very long time. I still learn things even reading this article, having lived through all of that myself. Okay, so legislative updates. As part of the summit, I wanted to make sure the board knew that the day before, we've had a couple of years of taking out legislative staffers that are here for the summit from DC, from California, and from Nevada. This was a record participation. I think we had 50 plus staff members, some officials that we took around to see projects in action. Last year, we were over on the West Shore at Meeks Bay. This year, we're in the 28 corridor and ended up at Sand Harbor. This is at Boat Inspection Station at the top of Spooner Summit. And it gives us the opportunity to spend time with those staffers who, as we all know, that participate in the legislative process. The members' support at the top level is critical, but the actual nuts and bolts of getting work done, getting bills passed, getting funding appropriated, it comes at the staff level. So we try to use the summit as an opportunity to work at the principal level as well as the staff level and see examples of projects that the delegation and our state officials are supporting. Meanwhile, a couple of key things were going on with both legislatures in California and Nevada. The top picture there in Carson City, the very next day on the 20th of August, we had our last hearing in the legislature with the Nevada Interim Oversight Committee for TRPA. And I wanted to just highlight a couple things. Certainly, you can go online and look, but there were multiple bill drafts advanced out of that committee, which will flow into the Nevada legislative session. A couple of note are support for funding for the next level of the next tranche of EIP bonds. The states of California and Nevada have passed bonds to support the share of the EIP from the states. That advanced, in addition to a $70 million recommendation for Sand Harbor's master plan. So really retooling the entire Sand Harbor State Park to better accommodate the visitation and the recreation challenges of today versus, decades and decades ago when that plan was done to implement state parks in Nevada. So that was exciting. There are a number of bills related to evacuation plan, bill drafts, and fire insurance, and many things related to fire. But the one of note I wanted to call attention to this board was one that we advanced as part of our suggestions for bill drafts, and that is around illegal concessions on the lake. You've heard at legal committee and in enforcement matters, we have platforms that are, promoting boats for rent, like getmyboat.com being one where that's almost like a timeshare for boats. These operators are not necessarily properly insured or licensed or permitted. We've had enforcement cases that you've heard about from legal. This would advance legislation. The first concept was limiting that to Lake Tahoe, but interestingly, the committee members in the discussion in the legislature said this is a statewide problem. We want this to be a statewide bill. So again, TRPA has the opportunity with our Tahoe partners to advance legislation statewide in Nevada, and that could be something we could look at in California. So that's moving into the legislative process in Nevada. In the California legislature, you've heard from our team and from our board member, Alex Loomer, who's been very engaged in Sacramento. It's the last, remaining days of California's legislative session. And we had two bills that didn't make it over the finish line, AB 2679 on a recreation safety corridor around the California side around Emerald Bay. We think we can still affect the change through agreements with El Dorado County and Caltrans, and we were very engaged. And we were engaged at the summit with representatives from CalSTA, from Secretary Omashawkin's office to engage in those conversations. And if we can't achieve the goals through agreements, we might come back around for next session. And there also was a golden mussels bill that many of you were tracking. We were testifying in Sacramento. That did not get over the finish line either. So that's something we'll take up in the next session. But a couple things to note there. And then just a couple more slides. The Tahoe Transportation District Board. I represent you as the governing board on the TTD board, with many of you individually representing your jurisdictions. Just a couple of things to note there. There is a strategic planning session that the TTD, Tahoe Transportation District Board, is undertaking, and that's coming right up on September 16th. And we'll be engaging with the TTD staff and other board members around some of these same issues, capital investment in managing the roadways for safety. State Route 28 in Nevada will be discussed. There's a lot of engagement with law enforcement, with NDOT, same in California. And really those three E's, the education around this, the opportunity for engineering, and then enforcement. And what we're finding in these projects, the pilot at Emerald Bay, the work on 28, is that engineering is a vital component. Like, we just physically have to put barriers because people will park anywhere. They will park vertically if they have to climb up the side of the mountain, if they have a good four-wheel drive. So the law enforcement voices at the table have been instrumental in helping us find the right solutions to recommend for infrastructure. And those conversations are also being had at TTD. Okay, we'll move on to the last couple. What's coming up? Our Transportation Committee will be meeting. The Federal Transportation Improvement Plan gets advanced in terms of what projects are funded in the next cycle. That's sometimes administrative in nature, but it actually is pretty vital to move the projects through their multi-year steps before the funding can flow from Washington into the hands of the partners that implement transportation before that can actually get done on the ground. We have some legal appeals pending. And then importantly, mark your calendars for the afternoon of our regular board meeting. We're actually going to get out in the field and see the progress on the Spooner Park and Ride and Invasive Species Inspection Station, because there's a lot of site work that's been done in the last several months. And we're going to talk about the entire plan for the corridor and as well. So mark your calendars for that as part of the regular afternoon. And then October, we have a big program coming. We do our annual adjustment of our filing fees for permits for inflation. We're going to hear about the aquatic invasive species programs, inspections, and other noteworthy accomplishments this year. What's going on with the golden mussels and what's happening. A fire look back, forest health, updates from our partners on that. We're updating our next suite of thresholds around biodiversity and recreation. We're engaging the community in that. And then, of course, our annual Best in the Basin Awards, which is a chance for us to showcase those projects that are doing such a good job to harmonize our goals and to achieve our mission. And I think with that, I will wrap up and thank the chair for the opportunity to speak.
Thanks, Julie. Graham, and then we can do questions and comments if anyone has any.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just have a few quick litigation updates this time around. I think I had mentioned in the past that we had notice of a filing of a lawsuit related to the agency's denial of a permit involving a boat ramp conversion to pier and transfer. It was a kind of complicated project back earlier this year. And we did at the very last day, we did receive service of that lawsuit. So it looks like we will be defending that one. We feel strongly that the decision is consistent with the code. And so we'll be defending that action. And then another one that is kind of goes along with the litigation, the legislation, the bill that Julie mentioned with our ongoing fight against the unpermitted boat rentals. We have been, keeping up that fight in court. We've been pursuing the legislation, and we've started to get more creative in the field. And our compliance team, we enlisted the help of the AIS inspection stations to start preventing the launch of those boats that we know are unpermitted concessions. And those operators, which are the defendants in our litigation, they went to court and sought a temporary restraining order to basically block the agency from enforcing that are essentially kind of keeping these boats out of the water. We briefed our arguments there, and it was referred to a magistrate judge who recommended a denial of that temporary restraining order. So good news. It's not necessarily final there, but we think it bodes well for us being able to keep an aggressive stance on keeping these boats out of the water. And we see that we're finally seeing something that is actually affecting these guys. Unfortunately, we see them now, and we're documenting all of this, that they're altering their registration numbers to get past the inspection station. So this just gives you a feel of the types of people that we're dealing with here on this. And, we're going to keep that up, but it remains an ongoing challenge. And then finally, I just want to mention, I usually don't do this, but in terms of the whole board of cases that we're likely to be bringing very soon, but the legal committee has heard about a homeowner on the East Shore who built a pretty substantial structure in the shore zone without TRPA review or approval. And we had actually had a previous settlement agreement with this person on a different situation. So they're a repeat offender. It's on the East Shore. And we have not been successful. The legal committee's been hearing about this. We haven't been successful with a settlement agreement. So we're still waiting for that, still kind of hopeful, but we're not, I don't think we're going to be continuing to delay, and we probably will be filing a complaint soon if we don't have a settlement wrapped up in the near weeks. And that's all I've got. Thank you.
Questions or comments, guys? Nope. All right. We're going to move on then to agenda item 10, which is governing board member reports. And I will just quickly start. And I'm sorry I didn't do this at the beginning, but I want to welcome our newest member, Joe Kanata. Joe, thanks for being on the board. We welcome you warmly. Joe is our new appointee from Governor Newsom, our new California governor appointee. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but if you want to say anything, please feel free, and just a super warm welcome to you for being up here.
Thank you so much, Haley. I appreciate it. Honored to be part of this group. I've always really, I've been following TRPA and what you've done for years, and I just very proud to be part of it. Born and raised in California, spent all my summers in Tahoe. I still spend quite a bit of time up here. I'm based in San Francisco, and I'm very excited to be part of this organization and keeping the lake blue and doing everything else you guys do. So thank you. I'm being quiet today. I'm taking a lot in, and that's why you haven't heard much from me yet. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for being here. Anybody else? Governing board member reports. Anybody have anything else to report? Cindy.
I had a quick one. Earlier today, you heard public comment. Yeah, the Board of Supervisors yesterday did make a request to the state of California to reconsider Kings Beach as an opportunity zone. And I want to be clear with the board members who may not be as familiar with that. It really is a financing mechanism. It is not in any way related to a specific project or changing anything with our area plans or planning regulations. It's just truly trying to find private investment, encourage more private investment in the infrastructure. And going to our earlier report, we know that so much of the water quality degradation is coming from our urban cores. That was part of the 2012 regional plan. We just haven't succeeded in getting a project privately financed. So we're hopeful that will be reconsidered. Kings Beach does meet the criteria of an under disadvantaged community status and made it eligible, but we're encouraging the state to reconsider that designation. Thank you.
Thanks, Cindy. Anyone else? Governing board member reports. Okay. Well, that does bring us to, or actually really quick committee reports. Any committees have anything to report? Committees? Okay. That brings us to our final period of public comment. For those in the room and listening online, this is our final period of public comment for the governing board. Any item listed or not listed on the agenda can be commented on at this time if it is within the jurisdiction of TRPA. We'll hear comments for up to, but not to exceed 3 minutes per speaker. We'll also hear comments for no more than a total of 60 minutes. So everyone knows the committee starting after this governing board is where we will be talking about the herbicide issue. So if you're here for that agenda item, you will have a period of public comment at that time to address that if you would like. With that, I'm going to start in the room and then we'll go online. Go ahead.
Steve Dolan, Friends of Third Creek, regarding the meetings that you had earlier with Bob Larson and Dr. Hampton. I think it's important to note, as you did, that we're looking at something that is atmospheric by nature when we're trying to study the smoke and the ash coming from fires around us. And I think for the board, it would be better to focus on the things that we can control rather than the things that we can't. And as such, I've spoken with Dr. Hampton, Sudeep Chandra, Patricia Manley at a meeting here regarding director, I'll call it brine for you, it's salt reaching the bedrock of the lake and running into the shore. And that in itself promotes phosphorus, which we've seen a spike in phosphorus over the years. So I think it would be great if you guys could try and shift from atmospheric things that we can't really control to the things like Washoe County's brine solution on the highway before, predicted snow, because that brine has reached the bedrock and is going into the nearshore environment and is increasing the algae growth. So if we could go back to salt, or I mean, not to salt, but to sand or something like that, I think it's better, especially since, as you said, we're removing more sand than we're putting down. So that is a good solution as opposed to brine. Thank you very much.
Anyone else in the room at this time?
Hello, Alan Miller, professional environmental and civil engineer. I wanted to talk about a few little things here. First of all, about the agenda, I've written to you on several occasions about the way you do your public hearings for action items or possible actions. And it is not legal or proper to only hold public hearings at the beginning and end of the meeting as you do. You really need to hold an opportunity for the public to speak during items that are going to affect the environment. And that's how it was forever until you and Julie Reagan changed it to be illegal. So you need to change it again and make it so it's before and during items. And if you want to have one at the end, that's fine. And I think that's really minimal and more important than your efficient meetings. You can manage it. I want to discuss some painting of the storm drains that I've seen and construction related sources of microplastics I've been seeing around town. And first of all, I sort of question the need, because what's happened is Caltrans has painted the storm drains green on Highway 50 through the city of South Lake Tahoe. And those are also the bike lanes. So it's clearly been done for safety to mark the bike lanes, but those lanes are widened and are safer than they've ever been. And so I don't know what the real need is for painting green. And that green stuff, I've seen it just flakes off. I've seen it in caked up layers. I don't know what's in it. I suspect plastics. It's like some kind of a plastic coating. It's not just paint. And it wears off. I mean, people drive on that and the storm drains are running there. And why are we putting out tons and tons of paint that then just has to be removed if there's really no justifiable need? So I'd just ask you to look into that. And along with that, something that Brooke Lane mentioned on one time is these baby monopine needles that we're seeing cropping up in our storm drains and along the sides of the road where people are doing road work. Okay, so we finally got the No More Monopines ordinance passed. Congratulations. And now we've got people putting out construction markers that are these little plastic things driven into the ground, and then they just walk away and leave them. And so there needs to be some follow-up at some point, or some public education be brought to bear that those things turn into microplastics and they're going to end up in the soil and the water. So thank you.
And I see people coming up. We also have, thank you for coming up and being ready. We also have names that we're going to call up to for 1 hour. So thank you for being ready. Go ahead.
My name is Jeb Cicluna from Truckee. It's an honor to be here. Thank you for your time. Who's ever seen a grown bear nibble on the pine needles of a smaller growth conifer trees? How about rub their bodies all over them? I have in Myers, right below Collider, in fact. So lick your lips, past the gums, look out nervous system, hear the poison needles comes. Brush your fur, scratch your bum. What's that on the ground? A dying bird and insects going numb. I have spent the last 30 years working and playing in the Tahoe National Forest as a career professional firefighter with a fire technology degree, as a career snow sports and water sports instructor, and am a small business owner on Lake Tahoe. I've served my time implementing 4291 living with fire defensible space inspection, defensible space state regulations, and to make Tahoe a more fire safe place. I can tell you that killing the understory ecosystems with a little glyphosate here and there, a lot of tons of it, adds to the compilation of flammable ground cover to increase 1 hour fuels, risking fire danger. Let that logic sink in. This is a This idea here is a fool's ludicrous, nonsensical plan with no regard to Earth's way to heal, restore, and recover. If man wants to intervene, then do it with clipping, trimming, snipping, small cutting, chipping, composting trees through sustainable, eco-safe, ethical tree thinning practices we are all familiar with. As a local resident, I drink Tahoe Tap and swim in the lake like most everyone else. If I was in kindergarten and it was explained to me that the frothy Tahoe snowy peaks melt into the rivers and creeks that feed nutrients to the fish and fills the lakes, then the bald eagles soar and dive down to catch the fish, to fly to their favorite tree branch or on top of a tree to eat their fresh meal. And from the Truckee to the largest little city to Washoe, Carson, and beyond, more and more people and farmlands and natives enjoy these emerald blue waters. I think I would understand. Now, as adults, we would be dumber than dumb to disregard the basic principles of watershed. So, what about the southwest local winds that blow anything and everything towards Mount Rose? Now back to the eagle. Poisoning our watershed, which includes resident salmon, trout, etc., violates the U.S. Bald Eagle Protection Act, in my mind, which states it is a crime for man to interrupt natural feeding, such as poisoning the fish. Where is California Fish and Game? So taking this all in, due to the beaming and heart illuminating, joy giving intellectual intelligence of the room, we can all agree this pocket lining corruption of glyphosate spraying needs to be shut down. Now thank you. Well, you guys are awesome. I'll tell you, people, mistake anxiety, signs and symptoms for it's actually being courageous. The same signs and symptoms just to communicate. But let's protect Tahoe, for if there is any common sense left, said the silly cinnamon bear. We as well can all enjoy some. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. And hey guys, I know you guys are excited, but we have an hour to hear comments. So if we want to be respectful, let's let people talk. Thank you.
And sorry, I'm going to have to chime in too. General Counsel, there are a lot of people, there are different perspectives. We don't clap. We don't do that as part of these meetings, just in case somebody else has a different perspective and wants to voice their opinion. That would make it very uncomfortable for them. So we need to maintain that, and we appreciate your adherence to that. Thank you for being respectful.
Thank you. Natalia Mazina from South Lake Tahoe, and I'm here today to urge the agency to prohibit the use of glyphosate-based herbicide throughout the Lake Tahoe Basin. Honestly, I'm even surprised that this item is on the agenda. There's so much information, so many medical cases, legal actions, all proving that glyphosate presents grave danger to human health, animal well-being, birds, quality of water, air, and we all have it here in Tahoe. Not only is it necessary to use glyphosate under this set of facts, but it will irreparably damage the fragile ecosystem of the Lake Tahoe Basin. Let's take waters. Tahoe's watershed is subject to the strictest environmental protection in this state. The legislature itself has recognized Tahoe's fragile environment and established specialized protections to achieve environmental threshold in the Lake Tahoe Basin, and is codified in Public Resources Code Section 5096.351. It's in our legislature. Yet glyphosate threatens this unique ecosystem. California courts also have repeatedly found substantial evidence that glyphosate poses serious health risks. Just to name a few legal actions that return verdicts for plaintiffs proving that glyphosate caused lymphoma and other tumors: Johnson versus Monsanto, Philoid versus Monsanto, Dennis versus Monsanto. This is just a handful of cases in this state. There are hundreds of these cases throughout the nation. All verdicts returned for the plaintiffs. Even the U.S. Supreme Court itself acknowledged in Monsanto versus Durnall that the International Agency for Research in Cancer classified glyphosate as a carcinogen. Recently, we had the Sierra Club case here, which in the Tahoe Keys, demonstrating that introduction of herbicide in the water presented grave risk to the water's health system. The El Dorado Superior Court enjoined the whole project, finding it presents danger to the quality of water and the fragile ecosystem. And here we are again. It's time to ban this chemical in this pristine environment. Stop playing the big game of the herbicide manufacturers, and finally prioritize the health of people, animals, as well as the quality of our waters. Thank you.
All right. Good afternoon, Melissa Soderston, South Lake Tahoe Eco Integrity Alliance. I've come before this board numerous times to speak on these issues. Now is the time for you to actually listen. Our public lands are being decimated in real time with your assistance. There is no science which supports this, including that published by the Forest Service. This plan to further salvage log and spray with glyphosate and other herbicides the Caldor area is especially egregious. This area, it is in a remarkable state of rejuvenation, hosting more biodiversity than surrounding areas. Even high severity fire is creating essential habitat, which is lacking in our forests. Any plan to restore and replant these areas with primarily monoculture pine species will set these ecosystems back for decades, if not permanently. Logging and herbicides kill more trees and release more carbon than wildfire and bark beetles combined. CAL FIRE and the Forest Service both admit that thinning does nothing to prevent, slow, or stop wind-driven fire, and that it is likely to exacerbate extreme conditions. The Western Fire Chiefs Association stated clearly that the best thing agencies can do in the face of our rapidly changing climate is to harden homes and infrastructure. These projects aim to poison and remove native tree, plant, and chaparral species. They are drying soil and destroying mycelium networks, decimating forage and permanently depleting seed banks, driving more bears into our neighborhoods, increasing wind, dust, and sediment loads into our lake. These are not overgrown hazards in need of help from humans. They are dynamic ecosystems attempting to cope with what humans have caused. You must do better. You must follow the science. You must use your bloated budget where it counts and for what it was intended. We have microplastics on our lake, trash on our beaches, no stormwater infrastructure, hardly functional transit, no buried utilities, no evacuation routes, no semblance of community-wide defensible space. You are not developers, nor are you commercial loggers. This is not restoration, it is rape. End the lies. We need infrastructure, not ecocide.
Hi, everyone. I'm a forester, an ecologist, and a scientist who has lived in this town since 2004. I've had stage 3 breast cancer. I've watched my mom die from cancer and many friends, and I continue to watch my generation get diagnosis after diagnosis. I've done the work to eradicate as many chemicals as possible from my life and have fought to get chemicals out of and off of our food. But I think you'll be surprised that I am probably in the minority here speaking out today. And I'm speaking as a private citizen on a complicated topic that deserves nuanced discussion. It's important to understand why herbicide is used in reforestation: to control competing vegetation so that baby trees don't die. Usage has increased recently because of the massive rise in high severity fire acres. Without it, we risk permanent conversion of forest to shrubland. And this isn't a grand statement, it's backed by empirical and modeled data. I've fought fire on the Angora burn, I've worked salvage, I've planted the trees, I've manually removed the competing vegetation, and I've counted the survivors. I've spent years on thinning projects around the lake that played a major role in protecting our community during Caldor, and it still wasn't enough to prevent a 2,500 acre high severity patch within the basin. Historically, high severity patches in pine and mixed conifer forests averaged under 40 acres, rarely exceeding 250. Caldor alone produced over 100,000 acres of patches greater than 100 acres, with close to half unlikely to recover naturally. Caldor, Dixie, and Sugar together produced roughly 400,000 acres of these large patches in a single year. Without live trees within about 100 meters, there's no natural seed source, and severely burned soils compromises the seed bank. That combination is what drives permanent conversion to shrubland, altering wildlife habitat, water quality, carbon storage, and fire hazard. California's Wildfire and Forest Resilience Task Force cites a 1.3 million acre backlog of reforestation, with worst case modeling showing potential loss of 15 million acres statewide over the next 50 years, without aggressive reforestation. Success requires clearing dead trees for worker safety and reburn risk, plus control of competing vegetation, which is where herbicide comes in. Manual removal is possible but costly, physically brutal, and the workforce to do it at scale doesn't exist. Alternatives to herbicides like goats and prescribed fire have their own feasibility constraints. At an estimated $1 billion a year to clear the backlog and a general seeding shortage, the investment needs to succeed. I respect the people here who hold a hard line on this, and I think we should keep scrutinizing on how to do this better. But I ask that any decisions weigh the full complexity and trade-offs of not reforesting successfully after high severity fire. We need real sustained public engagement, not form letters, but people willing to learn the science, help do the hard work that this scale of restoration needs, and be willing to entertain different types of solutions. And I'm asking you all to be willing to do that.
Thank you. Hello, I'm dealing with anxiety, so if you give me a little bit of a accommodation to breathe. This is Patches, my service animal. And I'm Tanya May. Thank you. Thank you very much for that, because I'm studying forestry myself. I just graduated from our local community college, and I've been trained actually by a lot of your professionals on your, I'm grateful, so grateful, and very confused, frankly. So I'm gonna just breathe for a minute. I'm gonna take that picture in because I also focus on landscape photography. My name is Tanya May, that one right there, that picture of the meadow. And so I spend, I don't know, 100 days a year at Emerald Bay and all these areas that we spend time in. And I think that picked it up for me. I personally am shocked that we have cyanobacteria in Kiva Beach area. But let me stick to this. The first thing I want to say, I'm not going to feel affected by your guy walking out. Is your reputation preceded yourself? I lived in this area my whole life in the Valley, and TRPA was and is very reputable, and I respect your decisions, and being able to learn from y'all has been a benefit and huge honor to transfer to Humboldt. My goal is to become a registered professional forester and bring a different life experience in, right? Totally different view. I haven't had a lot of the experience. I do know that I'm currently being at risk of being homeless again as of today because my landscaper told my landowner that I am upset about the fertilizer he wants to put down 3 times when I use the grass in my backyard with my bear skin and my dog. So that coupled with Caltrans publicly spraying our side of our waterways with these chemicals going right into our water system. I am a breast cancer survivor. I am being rehabilitated by the state, by the grace of God. In fact, our creator has let me have a couple more days on this planet. And so with that, I'm gonna fight climate change. And I'm kind of surprised that the board isn't willing to hear all of the measures, the people, the different sides of the coin. I think there's a purpose for herbicides. I think there's a good opportunity to get some workforce back in the workforce on the side of the hills. We can use drones. We can deliver packages the same day we can get to space. I think we could manage the natural resources we have and sequester carbon. Agroforestry, we can eat out of the forest if we plant it. We can get our medicine from there. We can really do a lot of things. So I'm just going to thank you from the bottom of my heart for standing up for your reputation of justice, legality, and we are the apex. So whatever we put in, we're going to eat. And it is like, I don't know, 6 times stronger in my science research. I don't know exactly, but it's ridiculously up.
Thank you for your comments. Very appreciated that you're here.
I thank you.
Hello, Tara Thornton, co-founder of Protect Tahoe, along with my partner, Kelly Ryerson, who couldn't be here today. Just so you know, she and I are both experts on the issue of pesticides, on policy, legislation, and community organizing. And we also have science and legal partners that we're willing to bring to the table. Our mission of Protect Tahoe is to make a bi-state, bioregional model of healthy forest regeneration and wildfire mitigation without the use of conventional herbicides. And Tahoe Lake Basin is the heart and the hub of it. The TRPA, you do have the regulatory authority. You're the only entity in the United States, even beyond California Coastal Commission, that has full regulatory authority over every entity, including the U.S. Forest Service in those lakes. We have been meeting with the board members as well as staff. We have been meeting with the U.S. Forest Service in D.C. and some at the different regional districts here. I want to say I'm very happy with all those meetings. I think I would tell you that this issue in every place I speak or have meetings on it, nobody wants the conventional herbicides. They want alternatives. And you do not, the issue of forest regen, the issue of wildfire resiliency, and even the issue of timber board feet, which doesn't count here in the basin, but it does outside, is not dependent on glyphosate. It is not because we have a lack of glyphosate or conventional herbicides in our forests. In fact, those things create fire hazard problems and nutrient and water uptake issues. And we can get into all that. What actually affects it? Yes, weather affects it. So does early identification of fires and attack on them. Everyone's seen that in Nevada recently. Also, the work we do in the forest, all the management work. What Protect Tahoe is trying to do with this model is to create a line. Somewhere has to be the place in this country that we decide we're going to make the model for how to do this right and how to do it better. And there is no better place than right here in Tahoe. We have all the resources we need. And if we have a model, then we have a pilot that we can fund both federally, we can fund it with by state, and we can fund it privately, because we do need to get the people out into the forest and on the land doing the work. And we do need to be the example for all other areas. So this is achievable. You have the power. We want to see you change your code of ordinance from discourage to explicitly prohibit unconventional herbicides. We can help you with the language of that. We've been working on legislation at the state level to do that. And just know that you have every resource to do this, and this is a win-win for everyone. This is a partnership where public, private, Forest Service, TRPA, nonprofits, everyone can win on this, and you need to take that opportunity, because we should all be proud that we can model this here, and you have the power to start that and to hold the line in the basin. That's what you've been tasked to do. Thank you.
Guys. Please help you photos. Please help me be respectful in this room. Okay, please help me be respectful. We've asked to not clap so everyone feels welcome here. We can do this as a community. We can respect each other, even we have different viewpoints. Okay, please. Thank you.
Oh, so I brought a few photos because a picture's worth 1,000 words or whatever. Protect Tahoe has done a fantastic job. Nick, you have to unplug and oh, there it goes. Okay, so I'm about to show a photo of the Sierra Nevada yellow-legged frog that my son took, my other son, he's my son, took 2 weeks ago in Desolation Wilderness, and it's not starting for some reason.
Hi, could you say your name for the record, please?
I'm Michelle Miller. Oh, well, Nick, can you adjust it or something? Try against here, then you're right. Oh, no, but then I will. Okay. Nick, start it over. Do you mind? Okay, so this is Jabu Lake for those who know the lakes. So most of you know the Sierra Nevada yellow-legged frog is it's an endangered species and protected by the Endangered Species Act. Nick, could you move it up? My son took this photo at this lake a few weeks ago. Most people also know that this is the habitat. It's lakes, rivers, streams, sometimes talus. Talus is those big rocks. Sorry that, sorry. No, the photos are nice. Okay. Yeah, maybe she's right to dim the lights. Okay, so yeah, so in the meantime, sorry, just, okay, so now you see the photo better. Anyhow, So the thing is that I guess what's standard is they've come up with a system of how to protect the Sierra Nevada yellow-legged frog. And they try to make sure that that any glyphosate application is going to be not going to interfere within 500 feet of where the frog lives or where the frogs breed. The frogs breed in the streams and the creeks. You see more pictures of the frogs that we've taken. Well, the thing is that so glyphosate, most people know, is meant to bind to the soil, but in Tahoe, we have a lot of snow. So what happens is that the glyphosate can be stuck in the soil, and then we have snow, and then the snow melts, and all the soil and sediment that has the snow comes rushing into the lakes and the creeks and the streams, which is the breeding habitat for this Sierra Nevada yellow-legged frog, which legally is meant to be protected. So, in theory, somebody could do a report, but how accurate really could the report be when we all see when snow melts, it comes running in, and we all know that the frog exists? My son took this photo a couple of weeks ago. I saw it as well. I was with him. Anyhow, and the damage that glyphosate does to amphibians, including this frog, that scientific evidence is undisputed. Okay, sorry that my photos didn't work out.
My name is Amy Kacher, and I live in Truckee. My sister is Kelly Ryerson, the co-founder along with Tara of Protect Tahoe. She does lots of policy work like Tara does across the country in DC. She lives half the time in DC and is surrounded by scientists that aren't corrupt through the Monsanto channel. So when we started looking into this spray, it's really disheartening when you see that the U.S. Forest Service is basing their spray, thinking that it's safe, on the now debunked Monsanto papers, which the EPA has been required to go back and do their own new testing to see whether glyphosate is safe. So it's sad because the forest workers don't even know that they're putting themselves in harm's way by spraying this themselves with their spray packs. It's so bad. So the exciting thing is that Protect Tahoe, we're just getting started. We have this national platform. TRPA can be the leader that would be the guiding light for the rest of the forest system in our US and maybe throughout the world. And it's a really exciting, positive time. And I know there's a lot of angst and upset around this, but there's also a huge positive opportunity. And I'm just here to say we're just getting started. We can all work together. I think everybody at this table wants the right thing. And there are other ways to do it without poisoning our land and our workers and all of that. So thank you. We're just getting started.
Next in the room, guys.
Sorry, I just want to reiterate, I do think we should be not clapping. Even though I want to clap, let's be respectful. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Scott Robbins. I am a member of the City of South Lake Tahoe City Council. And while my comments here are in my personal capacity, I thought it important that at least someone from the City Council should be here in person to speak on the issue of glyphosate and the environmental issues in our regional forests. For as long as I can remember, federal policy towards environmental remediation and environmental management of our wildlands has been at best indifferent. But in the last 2 years, what we've seen from the federal government is a real shift from indifference to belligerence. And that change in policy has finally come home to us locally and individually, in that we are now seeing a shift from what would have been a very functional process of manual reforestation to the use of herbicides, which are known carcinogens and known poisons, as a potential cost-saving measure at its best interpretation. The City of South Lake Tahoe will undoubtedly be considering a ban on the use of these types of pesticides by public agencies within the city. But the city's authority is extremely limited, both in capacity and, importantly, in jurisdiction. The city's authority only extends to its municipal borders and does not extend into the Forest Service land. That responsibility and that authority rests with the Tahoe Regional Planning Agency, the TRPA. That's you. You have the unique authority in the basin to actually make a difference here when federal authorities have not so much as abrogated their responsibilities, but have shifted towards environmental belligerence. And while we are here primarily, and all of us are focused and thinking about the glyphosate issue, and importantly and rightly so, there is also another issue that is coming up behind it that I think is also worth consideration. And that is that the Forest Service has ended or is about to end its roadless rules, in that it will now be allowing the development of new roads into previously prohibited areas. This will invite more vehicles, their attendant pollution, and the increased risk of wildfire coming from that vehicle access. The TRPA, as a federally chartered organization, has unique authority in our region to make a difference here. No other agency and no other organization is in a position to push back against this kind of environmental belligerence that's coming from the federal government, except for the organization in this room. So I implore the city on the behalf of the citizens I represent, I implore the TRPA on the behalf of the citizens that I represent to ban the use of glyphosate and similar pesticides throughout the basin, and to encourage the use of manual reforestation. That is more expensive, but we have no shortage of wilderness professional workforce which could do that job. So please take a stand for what is right. Thank you.
Yeah, what he said. I'm Jackie, also Basin resident, founder of Sustain Tahoe. I want to take you back to 1850, 1860, when over 60% of the Tahoe forest was clear cut for the gold over in Comstock. And we know how that went when the trees came down and they went through the lake up to Mill Creek and over, right? And the lake was devastated. Maybe it was a few feet of clarity. Humans step back. It's called a pulse disturbance. Something happens very out of the sorts, and we step back. We didn't do anything. We didn't intervene. We didn't even care about the lake. We cared about the gold, silver over there, right? We stepped back, and what happened? Nature came in, and by 1920, we had 100 feet of clarity. Now, what we have done since the 1960s is called chronic disturbance. We continually go in and try to manage because we think we know better than 4.5 billion years of Earth intelligence, maintaining such an incredible, ideal life support system for us and the bears and the wildlife. So I think it might be time to abandon the thought that we can poison the forest back to health, and we just step back and not do chronic disturbance and let the 4.5 billion years of Earth intelligence guide us, not trust our best thinking, because our best thinking got it here. And now it's AI. And now we're freaking out about our shadow. That's all our data. I don't know if it's that great, but if you log into nature's touchscreen and you access through your DNA, your direct nature access, 4.5 billion years of Earth intelligence. Yeah, thank you.
Hi, my name's Karina Faley. I'm a resident of South Lake Tahoe. I don't know any of my neighbors that support spraying this herbicide in our surrounding forests, right? And I think you guys know the number better than me, but we spend tens of millions of dollars a year through multiple organizations and agencies around the lake to try to keep Tahoe blue. We're going to blow that in one irresponsible vote if we vote to allow the Forest Service to do this to our public lands. I think it's really time that as a board, we stand behind the environment and we make an example for the rest of the country. I think a lot of people, as to what a few other folks said, are looking upon us for some leadership here, right? The rest of the world is also burning, but I think we owe it to this community. We owe it to the wildlife. We owe it to our children, our children's children, to make sure that this environment stays safe. We remain cancer-free. Our lake doesn't turn green with pollution. We actually have food for our wildlife to eat. If you look at what's happened around Lassen National Forest, and you look at what has happened since they've sprayed this horrible chemical, you see a green line that is completely natural. Plants are growing, insects are there, birds are back, there's food for animals in the environment to eat. And then you look over that line where they've sprayed, there's nothing. It's a dead zone. It looks like a wasteland. Let's not do that to Tahoe. Please don't do that to Tahoe. Thank you.
Hi, Lynette Hoy of the South Lake Tahoe Hoys. And I am speaking today on behalf of all of District 5 citizens, and especially the West Coast or the west side of the slopes. My family's been here since 1958. I have been here since the day I was born. I have seen the decisions of the TRPA and how they do not justly represent the people of the community, the safety of the community, the clarity of the lake. And isn't this somehow all related to your cutting of the prescribed burns back in the early 80s? That if that had continued and the forest and land had been maintained as it had been done for thousands of years, we wouldn't be looking at this problem. My resources today are Kit Veerkamp, Kathleen Midas of the Maidu Indians of the Consumnes River Coalition, and Betty Albert, who is writing a book from several decades on how the soil of El Dorado County and specifically has been treated. Now, not only do I very much care about this environment and the life cycle of the whole life cycle, because if you interrupt any little bit of that, the fungus, the plants, the insects, all of that is disrupted. So I and the citizens would like to know exactly what studies and research you did to deduct that this was the best resource to do in this situation. And I would like to know the governing agency that made this decision. I would like to know the person that made this decision. And how do you plan to do a better job in the future? How don't your actions more directly correlate you to the lumber industry and not the beliefs or benefits of anybody in this county other than the greed of the few people that make money? What is it going to take? As far as research of this week, there is no documentation or studies that indicate this was right at all. And how are you going to rectify it? And we want answers. We want precise answers, and we want them now. Thank you.
Oh, okay, I got the mic up here a little bit. I think it's pretty clear how people feel, right? There's so many studies that show how bad, these poisons are. I'm here to actually ask you guys questions though. One is, if you read through the reports around this project, the SERA report and the human pretty much effect report, right? Right in the very introductory line, it talks about one of the main goals is to use herbicides to destroy native completing plants, right? Anybody who lives here, who's trying to do a project here, knows that we don't always agree with the regulations of the TRPA, but we kind of give in to them for the betterment of Tahoe, because Tahoe is a special place. With that said, why are we allowing this project to trample on every threshold? Every 4 years, you guys do a threshold evaluation for building development, just kind of the overall kind of state of the union of the basin, right? And if you go through this report, this thing destroys every threshold you guys put in place. You guys are one of the few, only agency, regional agency that has been ratified by Congress. So how is it that we allow the National Forest to use an emergency action declaration to just trample everything we do here that we live by, that our tax dollars go to do, right? So we allow them to come in, and the reality is, and you guys be honest with it, this meeting probably means nothing. Because with the emergency action declaration, they can do what they want to do. It's the reason why the comment period got cut from whatever 6 months down to 30 days back in 2025. We're all here in 2026. We're already behind the ball. Like, we're constantly always in this country and in place like that, you're reacting to problems. You guys actually have a system in place to prevent problems. So you can go through your thresholds and you talk about air quality, right? University of Montana State, they released a whole article based on particle drift from backpack sprayers and all sorts of different type of sprayers. So particle drift, they find particles that are supposed to be in the application zone miles away, whether it's in your soils and that. One of the mitigation factors to risk in this is to add dyes in there, right? To bind this to the soil. You heard a lady talk about the freeze, thaw, snow melt theory. Well, that's going to carry these things well outside the application zones, right? So that goes into our thresholds for water quality. In the report, it states that they are going to maintain that chemical levels are below the EPA recommended levels for drinking water. Tahoe, we have a zero tolerance for drinking water. And when you go through it and you see which parts don't meet the thresholds, TRPA, we sign off on it, doesn't meet it because they promise to make up for it. So talk about wildlife, right? Mule deer. Deers fawn and breed and give birth in shrubs. They don't do it underneath conifer trees, right? They do it in shrubbery and hidden locations. So what's that do? They're wiping it out. They admit they're wiping it out, but they're going to replenish it later down the line.
And so
right?
we get 3 minutes.
Okay. My point being is you guys have the standards set and you gave in.
Next in the room.
Hi, I'm Renee LaFabre. I'm a resident here in South Lake Tahoe. I'm Renee LaFabre. I'm a resident of South Lake Tahoe. And I just want to say I'm here to represent a lot of people who can't be here today. And I don't think you can see the enormous number of people who are out there, but there's a lot of people who are very concerned about glyphosate spraying in Lake Tahoe. And I'd also want to say, I really appreciate you guys are actually paying attention to what people are saying here, because I've watched a lot of meetings in videos where the people scroll on their phones and don't listen. So I appreciate that. I also want to say that Tara and Kelly with the Protect Tahoe have an enormous amount of information available. And I hope that you will all go beyond this fraudulent report that says that glyphosate is safe and look into some of the things that she says, that they both say, that they have on their website, and as well, that educate yourselves beyond that. Because it seriously is not something we really need to do. And I know a lot of people think it is, but there's an enormous number of people here who don't believe that. And we all really love Tahoe fiercely. We love Tahoe. And you guys are really it. You're the line. And I also want to mention to the person who was sent here from Governor Newsom. I see the Governor Newsom stance on glyphosate. He leans towards using it. If there's any way you can get information to him about how strongly we feel that we should not be using glyphosate at all in our country, but most definitely not here in Lake Tahoe. So I just hope you guys will really, really, really inform yourselves seriously and just ban glyphosate spraying in Lake Tahoe, please, please.
Hi, y'all. My name is Adele Margolis. I'm a full-time year-round resident of Tahoe. Both my brothers raised their families here. One set of kids were Whittle Warriors. The other were South Tahoe Vikings. My son and his wife own a home here as well. They live here. They would be here right now, but they both work full-time and they can't take time off during the day. So I hope there'll be another opportunity some evening or a weekend for those that can't be standing here in the hallway to actually be heard as well. I'm not going to use my notes because I bleed Tahoe blue. This is very, very close to my heart. Took my little 2-year-old granddaughter on her first SUP paddleboard ride this morning. I swam in the lake next to her. My daughter paddled and my heart broke because I thought, how much longer can we safely do this? How much longer in the face of such a foolish, unforced error? For those of you that know baseball, I don't, but I know the term. An unforced error means you screwed up and shot yourself in the foot. And I'm tired of our government at various levels doing that. And I know that the TRPA does not want to do that. You guys have in your mission statement, I memorized the 3 verbs: preserve, enhance, restore. How does spraying a toxic herbicide on our forests preserve them? I ski Sierra. I learned to ski on where the football field is now at South Tahoe High. And then I switched to Sierra when that stopped. But I skied and I rode up Grandview Chair last spring, and my heart broke because I could see the little seedlings naturally starting to grow where the wind blows the seeds amongst the little rock crevices. We don't need to help nature in this unforced error way. Look at the Angora burn scar. So much shrubbery growing there, so much wildlife there, and conifers also growing. The first things that happen are the smallest things, the smallest shrubs, the smallest bushes, the smallest animals. And then the conifers come, and then the larger creatures that feed on them. But if we are going to poison the soil and the mycorrhizal fungi that nourish those very conifers that we're trying so hard to reforest, what does that say about our intelligence? Not a whole lot. So we need to think harder. I know you're all working so hard. We need to try harder. All of us need to try harder. We need to make the United States Forest Service understand that the TRPA is in a unique position. You have the power. Don't hide behind preemption. I'm a lawyer. It's a false hide. Don't hide. Stand up.
We're going to have a couple more. It's 1:04. Reminder, we're going till 1:16 and then the board meeting itself ends. Go ahead.
Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Stacy Baker. I've lived in Tahoe more than 35 years, and I'm here because I am angry. More importantly, I'm here because I am deeply concerned about what we're doing to this forest. We're being told that glyphosate and other herbicides are necessary to restore forest damaged by the Caldor fire. I don't accept that we should have to choose between forest restoration and protecting the health of people, pets, wildlife, soil, and water. I especially don't accept the idea that chemicals should be applied anywhere near streams and riparian areas in a watershed as environmentally sensitive and precious and vulnerable as Lake Tahoe. The forest says it has safeguards and buffers. BS. A line drawn on a map does not change the reality of the landscape. Water moves. Soil moves. Yes, Julie, I'm talking and you're texting. Please hear us. Please. I'm trying to be positive. I already think the decision has been made. I do. Water moves, soil moves, wildlife moves, rain and snow move chemicals downhill. What happens in the forest will not stay in the forest. Period. Common sense, folks. Once these chemicals are released into this ecosystem, they cannot be taken back. I understand the Caldor fire devastated this forest. I understand the desire to restore it, but restoration should mean helping the forest recover, not replacing one disturbance with another. Nature is doing an extraordinary amount of work for us. We should be using every reasonable non-chemical tool available before reaching for a known carcinogen. Replanting, monitoring time. We're talking about Lake Tahoe, the jewel of the Sierra. This is not an industrial plantation. This is an extraordinary ecosystem, a drinking water watershed, wildlife habitat, and somebody's backyard. I want to say something very directly to this board, and I need you to hear me. Please Do not confuse the existence of an authorization with the existence of an obligation. There is a difference. Just because herbicide was authorized does not mean we have to accept it. You have an opportunity to stand up for the precautionary principle and say that Tahoe Basin deserves a higher standard. I ask you to oppose this ridiculous, despicable glyphosate synthetic herbicide and demand restoration be accomplished through methods that do not introduce unnecessary chemical risk into our forest and waterways. 5 years after the Caldor fire, we have an opportunity to decide what kind of forest we leave to the next generation. Please don't make the decision we're willing to sacrifice the health of this ecosystem because a chemical treatment was easier or faster, or maybe you guys get a kickback. I'm asking you to protect Tahoe, not as a slogan, but as a responsibility. Every time we have these public comments, people make comments, you still choose to overdevelop, chop down this forest. Wildlife has nowhere to go. Come on.
Oh, you guys got a tough crowd. Good afternoon. My name is Oliver Starr. I'm a South Lake Tahoe resident and author and the executive director of the Tahoe Wolf Center. And before I begin my formal remarks, I would like to tell you that this is not a local story. This is a global story. Personally, I have over 500,000 followers across social media. And you know what they want to know is whether these poisons are going to harm our wolves. Think about that for a second. People in Europe, people in Asia, people in Africa are following what happens here. I've spent most of my life studying animals and natural systems. And one lesson nature teaches repeatedly is that our desire to control an ecosystem can sometimes do more damage than the thing we are trying to control. This is especially concerning when we consider glyphosate. A burn scar is not dead land. It is a living ecosystem in recovery. Before we introduce a broad spectrum herbicide into that recovery process, the burden of proof should be extraordinarily high. But I'm also concerned about what happens after approval. We already have a cautionary example in the Tahoe PTEIR. That document carefully prescribed how forest treatments were supposed to occur, including management of the slash they created. Yet I have personally watched treatment areas become fields of enormous burn piles that remain for years, while one's complex forest habitat is reduced to something that provides substantially less cover and value for wildlife. Rules on paper only protect an ecosystem when they are followed in the field. And notably, the PTEIR itself did not propose herbicide treatment. So before we give land managers yet another powerful tool, we should ask whether we have demonstrated the oversight necessary to control its use. I urge TRPA to reject glyphosate in the Caldor burn scar and adopt a basin-wide presumption in favor of non-chemical remediation. Tahoe deserves restoration with restraint, accountability, and enough humility to let nature participate in its own recovery. Thank you.
Hello, my name's James Maskell. I'm here representing El Dorado County, but also the wider bioregion. And what exactly is that bioregion? You know, could it be Tamales Bay, where they've got issues with glyphosate? Could it be Ladera Ranch, where they have a cancer cluster? Will it take a cancer cluster in Lake Tahoe for us to take this seriously? I'm here to, I don't think I could have said anything better than what was said by all the other people here today, and I'm really grateful for their ability to communicate on this issue so clearly. The way that I think about it now is that you guys are about to go to lunch. And I know that we're going to have more coming after lunch, but you're going to have that delicious cake. And maybe you're going to not be, you know, able to concentrate after lunch. So I want to be able to say, this reminds me of the movie and the play 12 Angry Men, where you as the jurors are sitting there and listening to a very compelling argument. And in that movie, all it took, and in that play, was one person to convince the rest that they needed to do the right thing. And maybe it's you, Cindy. You were talking about your kids and your grandkids. They want to play outside. I don't want them to get cancer. Maybe it's this lady here who's participating in some of the best active listening I've ever seen. But we need heroes. Which one of you is going to be a hero at lunchtime and decide that TRPA says this far and no further? Because they need it in Tamales Bay, they need it in Ladera Ranch, they need it across our whole bioregion, including the whole of America and the rest of the world. And the buck can stop here, and you guys can be the heroes.
Hi, my name is Brian. I live in Myers, and you've heard a lot of passion, a lot of anger, a lot of fear, a lot of concern out of the people who spoke today. I want to show you guys gratitude because you've already given us 2 years, 2 more years, 2006, 2007, to really understand and study this issue. My understanding is that the glyphosate spraying will not begin until 2028, if it will begin at all. And that gives us 2 years of grace. And so I want to thank you for that. Hopefully you can use your power, your responsibility, your authority to end the risk of glyphosate spraying in perpetuity well beyond that. I live in Myers, as I said, and I wake up every day and I look out and I see the burn scar from the fire that's coming up on its 5-year anniversary. But when I walk in those woods, what I see is I see life. I don't see just a burn scar. I see white thorns and I see manzanita, which you know are being vilified, but they are native natural plants who are a key to the succession of recovery for our ecosystem. They protect the soil, they provide shade. They allow morels and other organisms to grow. And yes, they are sheltering conifers, which I see growing, some inches tall, some feet tall, which would not be able to grow with glyphosate being sprayed. I do understand that the spraying is only going to be limited to 2,400 to maybe 3,600 acres, which is not a very large area for us to responsibly manage. There are hundreds of people here and thousands in this community who would, I'm sure, be willing to give their time to go out and use non-chemical methods to protect those growing conifers if that was something we felt we needed to do. If we felt we needed to manage a forest, which I don't think we do. If you walk among the burn scars, you see life of all forms, and including on those, all the all-important conifers. We don't need to spray, we don't need to intervene, but if we do choose to intervene, I hope that we can find a way to reach out to the community, reach out to the California Conservation Corps, reach out to public schools, reach out to other environmental groups, and see if we can get out there and use our own manpower to do non-chemical methods to protect our forests and to create restoration. We've all seen pictures of the last spraying where they use these supposedly super accurate backpack sprayers, but what we see are dead zones. What we don't see is what we see in our area. We don't see green, we don't see insects, we don't see butterflies, we don't see birds, we don't see flowers. All that is gone, all that has been lost to these backpack sprayers. There are other ways to mitigate what we feel is an issue. And so I ask you to use the power that you've used to give us 2 more years, to give us a lifetime of no glyphosate. Because with glyphosate, who knows what the lifetime will look like. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, you guys, we are at our end of our board meeting. So what we're going to do is I'm going to entertain a motion to adjourn from our board meeting. We're going to restart the EIP committee at
Tax dollars fund you guys
1:35.
messaging to us. It's really unfair that you would eliminate any voice from this conversation.
1:35. Guys,
More.
guys, I'm trying to be respectful of your time. I'm trying to listen, okay? We've been here. We got to take a break. We have to go to the bathroom. We have to get something to eat. This is the end of this board meeting. Please, I want to continue to respect you. Please respect this room, okay? Thank you. With that, we're going to come back at 1:35.